To order this special meeting of the Emeryville Planning Commission, December 20th. We have a roll call.
Commissioner Banta?
Here.
Commissioners Guerrero and Kang have excused absences this evening. Commissioner Keller?
Here.
Commissioner Thompson?
Here.
Vice Chair Barrera?
Here.
And Chair Donaldson.
Here.
We have a quorum of 5 commissioners present.
Okay, this is the time we have for public comment for any items that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone wishing to speak now? Seeing no one, we'll have the disclosure of conflicts of interest and ex parte communications. Anyone? No? No one? Okay. Then we will move on to our first of 3 public hearings of the evening. Maru, would you care to?
Well, indeed.
Give us, this is Versagenics Cannabis Manufacturing and Delivery Facility.
I think that's his address.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Today we have the first batch of cannabis-related applications in our city. The 3 applications before you today are pretty similar to one another. So in my first presentation, I will take you and walk you through some background, which is similar to all 3 of them, and I won't repeat it in the other 2 applications. So with that, we will start with the first item, which is located at 1320 67th Street, and the applicant is Versagenics. So by the way of background, in April of this year, the council adopted regulations to allow cannabis retail and manufacturing facilities in certain areas of the city. You may recall that this was upon the recommendation of this commission, and it came to the commission first in December, I believe, of 2016. As a result of that, a new article entitled Cannabis-Related Activities was added to the planning regulations that prohibits commercial cultivation but permits cannabis manufacturing, which includes non-storefront dispensary facility, or what is more shortly known as delivery service, and retail storefront businesses. The cannabis manufacturing use type is seen as being similar to manufacturing of pharmaceutical companies and allowed with a major CUP in certain zones where the pharmaceutical businesses are permitted. The cannabis retail use type is seen as being similar to tobacco shops and are allowed with a major CUP in zones where tobacco businesses are permitted. Plus, in addition to that, for the cannabis retail use type, there's also buffers for sensitive receptors such as schools, daycare centers, and parks. So this is how the map ends up looking for the cannabis manufacturing and delivery areas in the town. So everything that's colored, the different coloring is mainly the zoning district, but all colored areas are areas where cannabis manufacturing and delivery will be permitted. And this is the retail sale for cannabis diagram, and we do not have any retail applications today. But you will be shortly seeing in the coming few months. So just so that it's clear, the cannabis manufacturing businesses, there is no limit to it. The City Council has not put a limit on the number of applications that the city will entertain. However, for the retail, they did handpick through an RFP process 2 retail candidates to establish retail dispensaries. We have not received an application for CUP as yet, but you can expect that to see that in the coming months. So in addition to changing and introducing cannabis uses in the planning regulations, the council also adopted in September an ordinance entitled Cannabis, and which was in addition to the municipal code. And what that does is it outlines a permit process similar to a cabaret permit, which will be handled by the police department and will be administrative in nature. This will be called the operator's permit, and as I mentioned, will be processed by the police department. And what they will be looking at when they see these applications is they will be doing background screenings of the operator and the key employees. They will be looking and asking and approving a security plan, a tracking system that will track the cannabis inventory from seed to sale. This permit will need to be renewed annually, which allows the police department to ensure that if there are any kind of violations, they are corrected annually. It also serves as a deterrent and for the applicant to kind of mitigate any issues or any violations that are coming up or any complaints that are received. And this operator's permit will be required for both the cannabis manufacturing applications as well as retail applications. Now, there are for the use permit that is in front of you today, there are the findings that you need to make. The standard CUP findings, which you're very familiar with it, and that's being consistent with the general plan. The location, size, coverage, density, etc. Should not adversely affect the surrounding area and the character of the neighborhood. That it should be consistent with the infrastructure capacity of the area, and that it will provide a service that will contribute to the general well-being of the surrounding neighborhood or the community, and that it complies with the applicable standards and requirements of these planning regulations. In addition to that, what is common among all three applications today are certain standard conditions of approval. These are a little different from our standard conditions of approval that you normally see in a development-related project. So these are, one is that it specifies that additional permits are required, and that is a building permit, of course, if it is applicable, an operator's permit that I just talked about, and a business license from the city, and of course, all applicable state licenses. The second is that the facility needs to be in compliance with the state law and state regulations at all times. This is pretty standard, and at this time, the state is in the process of making a number of regulations, so we just use a blanket that they need to be in compliance with the existing state law and regulations at any given time. There is a condition regarding consumption, so cannabis consumption in any form, smoking or edibles, are prohibited on site in the public right-of-way abutting the property or within a 600-foot radius of the project site. In addition, there is a condition regarding the odor control, that all odors be contained on the project site, and if we receive any odor complaints, the applicant or their tenants or subtenants are required to work with the building official to abate the issue. Any unresolved and repeated violations related to the odor control can be the basis for suspension or revocation of the use permit or denial of the operator's permit renewal. Visibility, no cannabis activity shall be visible from the exterior of the building or from the public right-of-way. And there is a certain hours of operation. This is regarding pickups and deliveries only, and that is prohibited between the hours of 7 p.m. and 8 a.m. So these are conditions of approval which have been tailored for the cannabis applications, and they are similar in all three. Actually, they're exactly the same. So now coming to the application, the first item that the applicant, as I mentioned, is Versagenics. They are going to be occupying a little over 1,000 square foot existing building. They will manufacture with non-volatile solvents, process, package, store cannabis products to distribute to other cannabis vendors, and will include operations to support delivery of cannabis products to end users at off-site locations. Some of the cannabis products that will be produced at this site are health supplements, cosmetics, tinctures, vaporizer liquids, topicals, and some pet products. Their hours of operation will be 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Sunday, except for the deliveries, which will be restricted from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. No exterior changes of any kind are proposed to the building. So this is the building. It's at the corner of Hollis and 67th Street. It's been vacant for a while now, and they will be occupying the whole building. And it is lot line to lot line, so there is no parking on the site. And they will be doing some interior tenant improvements. So these were the plans which were also included in your package, which kind of tells you the interior modifications that they're doing on their first floor and on their second floor level. In terms of conformity to our regulations, it is located in the INL zone, which is where where cannabis manufacturing is permitted. It is also on the North Hollis overlay zone. However, this overlay zone has no land use or design provisions which would be applicable to this proposal. There's no change in FAR, there's no change in building height. In terms of parking, no parking is required, as the parking is triggered only if the space is greater than 1,500 square feet. And as I mentioned, as the space is less than that, no auto parking is required. Bicycle parking, however, is required, and the requirement is 2 short-term and 2 long-term spaces, and this has been included as a condition of approval that they need to provide these parking spaces. That's the number that outlines this requirement. So these are the CUP findings that you have to make, and staff believes that these can be made. These are new industrial type activities that will contribute to the economic diversity of the city, thereby fulfilling a number of goals and policies of the general plan, and they have been detailed in the staff report and resolution. The project will reuse an existing building in an industrial zone with compatible surrounding uses and will not pose a burden on existing utilities, and the project complies with all the applicable planning regulations, and the conditions of approval ensure that the bicycle requirements and the performance standards will be met. So that concludes my presentation. We are recommending that the Commission approve the use permit subject to the conditions of approval outlined in the staff report. So I am available for questions. The applicants are also here if you have any questions from them, but as such, they will not be having a presentation.
Okay, are there any questions for me?
Thank you, Maru. I have a couple questions. When you talk about delivery within the delivery hours, is that delivery of, like, say, raw product to the manufacturing facility, or product going out to delivery from the facility?
Product going out from the facility to end users.
To the end users, okay. And then there's the 2 short-term bicycle racks that are required. On the corner, there is a bike rack. Would that not suffice for their 2 short-term parking? It
could, but more is better.
Okay. You won't get argument from me. That's all I think.
Okay. Thank you, Maru, for your presentation. Are we to understand that the presentation you just gave applies to all 3 of the?
No. I will be making a presentation to the other 2 items separately, but the introductory slides regarding, the background, regarding where it's allowed, what are the standard conditions of approval which apply to all 3 of them, I won't go into that unless the Commission wants me to. But I will be walking you through where the site is, some pictures, and the operating characteristics.
Okay.
And there is a slight difference because parking would be required in the other 2 applications. So I'll walk you through that separately.
So I do have a number of other questions related to this specific applicant. I understand that there's no sales to the public in this
Correct.
Facility. Okay. And I read that there is supposed to be a security plan. I guess that's covered with the police department. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Has that been developed, and is that something that that staff is cognizant of, or is that independent of planning approvals?
That will be covered under the operator's permit. So when they make an application, that is when they will be providing a security plan and getting that approved. There's also an issue about making security plans public. And if it is a use permit, and Andrea, please jump in when you can, all our use permit background information is public knowledge. And anybody has the right to look at the whole file, the physical file of it. And that's why the security plan is within the operator's permit, where public access to that information is restricted.
Okay. And I noticed the hours of operation are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Sunday, so 7 days a week. Is that correct?
Yes.
And does that also mean the deliveries are able to be accomplished 7 days a week as well?
Correct, except for the hours that they are not allowed within each day.
Right. I saw another piece of information that said that none of the activities, the cannabis-related activities, are to be visible to the public. Now, this particular building has a big window facing onto the sidewalk. How is that particular measure going to be accomplished?
They will need to, we have not, the condition requires them that nothing should be visible. How they go ahead and do that, we are going to leave it to them.
Okay.
If I may, for that type of windows, we've learned that, for example, cannabis lounges that are supposed to be sort of more open and inviting to the public, they also are constrained with not having activities that are visible to the public right of way and to the exterior. And sometimes what they use is a frosted glass, so it's not like it has to be walled off, but that you're not able to see in clearly.
Does that ever come into conflict with the security plan for police to be able to see into the building at night with a light behind?
There are many ways that our police department can have access into what is happening inside of the operations. Each business has their own plan for security. Some may propose having cameras that are inside the premises, in which case our PD may have access to them. So what we've learned is no business approaches us in the same way, and really the key is that the police department and the applicant will work it out for what is best situated for that site and for that business.
Maru, you mentioned the delivery hours. Where does the delivery itself take place? Because based on the floor plans, I only see one access to the street, if that's correct. Is there a back door that I'm missing?
You mean where?
How are the deliveries go from the street into the?
Well, the loading will occur on the street.
So it'll be at the front.
Yes,
door.
It'll be at the front.
And is there going to be a loading zone set aside for that? I guess.
We have not contemplated that at this time.
Okay, so that would just be.
That would be as the buildings in that neighborhood function. There are no designated loading zones, so they'll come and go.
And do we have any idea of how frequent the deliveries would be?
I'm going to let the applicant respond to that question.
Okay. And then I have a question about the proposals in lieu of parking, the transit-related program. You mentioned AC transit tickets and so forth. Mm-hmm. Is BART included in that menu of options?
So there are two things. In this particular application, there is no TDM plan because there is no parking required. But I can answer for the other two. They do include that, and that does not include BART. It only includes AC Transit.
Okay.
No, I'm reading in one of the programs, they are talking AC Transit and BART.
Oh, yes, the last one.
Yes.
That's correct. I'm sorry. Yeah.
And so my last question is just related to the plan itself. I see that there's an existing bathroom, and the new plans do not call for any changes to that bathroom. do we know whether or not the bathroom will have to be conforming to ADA regulations?
I'm not sure. They have been asked to contact with the building department, and those kind of issues get worked out at that stage
Great. Thank you very
in
much.
terms of upgrading to the building code.
Any question?
Maru, I was also curious to know how many, what the volume of deliveries,
So we'll hear that from them.
and I believe you mentioned that there are other businesses in the neighborhood that have delivery services as well.
Not this type, obviously.
But they
but
have-
in the normal business of industrial activities, there's a Rotten City Pizza right there, and they deliver as well. So
do the delivery trucks usually park on the side streets to keep Hollis clear of the traffic, or are they free to park wherever?
to be honest, they do what they do. But obviously in Hollis, it's a busier street, so it tends to be more on the side streets. And especially for this, it would just make more sense to do it on 67th rather than on Hollis.
Okay, that was it. Thank you.
You have any?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation, Maru. Yeah, I think I had the same questions about the frequency of deliveries and sort of the burden that will place on the neighborhood. It's great that there's an opportunity to fill something, but we need to understand that.
Sure.
And then, and I think the same thing. I have observed the loading process. I'd love it just described. And then I do wonder about the street quality. It is an industrial zone, so it's not as though people are walking around, looking for cafes necessarily. But there are certainly neighborhood amenities. People are on the street, so the question about visibility versus providing activity on the street, I'd love to hear what the approach is. My question is, what's the approach to
What approach this particular applicant will
Yeah.
take in order to ensure that you cannot see in? Is that
the visibility requirements are met, but that the street quality and the neighborhood quality is addressed as well?
well? That's the trade-off that as decision makers and staff that we have to make.
Okay.
Because that's a security issue, which is important in a business which is new, and we don't know how it will play itself out. So the favor is in security rather than having a street that is more walkable and more pedestrian friendly.
Yeah, but I guess what I'd love to hear is just what is the day-to-day operation like? Help us understand that, because certainly there are employees walking in, walking out. There are times when it's active, there are times when they're not. There are deliveries coming and going. I'm not getting the full picture.
And I think the applicant would be in the best position to talk about what their particular operation is going to look like in that particular spot. So I will let him come and speak.
Those are my questions. Thanks.
I have a related question. In the conditions of approval, it says the police chief may further impose conditions on pickups and deliveries through the operator's permit. So can they require a delivery and loading plan?
Will they?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Yeah.
Yes, they may. That is something that they have. We had a joint meeting between police staff and the planning staff, and this was one of the things that were discussed.
The purpose of that condition was that, so the operator's permit has to be renewed every year. And those conditions could change year to year depending on how the business is doing, what's happening in the neighborhood. And what is of concern to the police department is the delivery of cannabis. And so for whatever reason, the police department may want the delivery of cannabis made at during a certain time frame, as opposed to during the entire window that the Planning Commission is allowing. So that is why that condition is in there.
Okay. My other question was that we do have conditions of approval regarding trash recycling and composting facilities. Can we be including secure trash areas in that?
So that is what the operator's permit is going to look at. They have to track cannabis, right? From the time it comes to the time it goes out. And So there is a certain threshold at which the trash threshold of cannabis product in the trash that they need to clean up before they can put it in the regular trash. So that will be covered at the operator's permit level.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Can I just piggyback on that comment? Is there, did the applicant share with you their trash program? I mean, where they're going to place the trash? Where is it typically placed with this building? Is it just right on 67th Street?
Yeah. That mean.
Okay.
I mean, it's a lot line to lot line building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just one follow-up question, Marina. This may be for you or for the applicant, but I'm just reading the non-storefront dispensary, and it supports the delivery of cannabis products to end user at off-site locations. So as a dispensary, it means they're making a product and they're dispensing it, meaning delivering it to a retailer. So am I understanding that correctly?
Correct.
Yes.
So, if I can just interject here. This is nobody's really dealt with cannabis before in the state of California. And so right now there's a lot of close communication going on between localities and the state. With respect to delivery, under state law, you have to have a dispensary license. And so to make sure that we are trying to speak in the same language as the state, while we typically use the short term, it's delivery only, what it really is a non-storefront dispensary where they are delivering the product to the end user off-site.
Well, this is my confusion. To me, an end user is, say, the patient or the client.
Right.
But this isn't the end user. They're delivering it to a retailer who then delivers it to the end user.
No, they are delivering it both to the end user and to distribution. Is moving product from one license holder to another license holder.
Right.
So they're making health products. They may in turn sell it to a dispensary who sells it to the end user.
Okay.
That movement of product between one license holder to another is distribution. The movement of product from their facility to, let's say, they're going to go deliver it to a patient in Emeryville or Oakland, that would be dispensing to the end user.
So this location will actually be delivering to an end user?
Correct.
Maybe at their home or wherever okay.
Correct, but
that's where I was confused.
The important distinction is that it is not open to the general public.
Correct.
Okay.
And just to add to the confusion, is that in subsequent applications, they, especially the 6613 Hollis, that's an incubator space. They do not have tenants at this time, and that could also involve where you could have delivery of product from here to a retailer, as Andrea mentioned, or it could be to another manufacturer. So, for example, if they end up making some kind of an oil, cannabis oil, that oil could be delivered to another facility, a licensed facility which is making edibles. So these applications allow for that. It doesn't mean that it will necessarily happen, but they do allow for that.
Very good, thank you.
Maru, can you put the map up again, just so we can refresh on the exact location? Because I know they're all near each other, slightly different.
Okay, so 67th Street is here, and the one that we are talking about right now is at the corner of 67th and Hollis.
And that's not near any of the sensitive receptor.
So, no, and manufacturing, we do not have any buffers to sensitive receptors. It's only for retail.
Okay, great.
So,
I thought there was a 600-foot limit. Oh, that's for consumption, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's worth noting that the two maps, so Emeryville has a 250-foot buffer. The state has a 600-foot buffer, but in the emergency regulations have clarified that they will defer to the local buffer. So for us, it is 250. We have been advising applicants of the state 600-foot buffer, because what good is it to get a permit from us if the state's not going to give you a license? But that's been clarified through the emergency regulations.
Was Commissioner Donaldson, were you looking at the condition of approval where it says 600 feet? Is that?
I was looking at the cannabis, but I see that it's consumption, including smoking, inhaling, ingesting.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Andrea, was your comment that for the 250, that's a local radius for consumption as well?
No,
That's the other map that.
It's this map.
Got it, okay.
Yeah,
Those are
yeah.
two
And
different
it's
things.
and we're not dealing with retailers today.
Yeah.
And I think the confusion was there's a condition of approval where from this site you cannot consume for 600 feet.
So, Maru, because there is no driveway or parking area attached to this building, and there's no way, therefore, to have a delivery truck come in and within an enclosed, secure area and bring the product or whatever from delivery truck to building and vice versa, the public right-of-way is becomes part of the delivery process for this particular site. And so the manner or the method of security of how the truck or delivery vehicle is secured from the time that the driver or whoever is going to go from point A to B would be of interest to the public and to the commissioners, I'm sure.
So that issue we conceived would be sorted out at the operator's permit. Now, if they cannot secure their deliveries from the existing configuration of the building and the street, then they would not be permitted to do that. The police will ensure that the whole operation is secure.
Okay.
And they can always impose additional conditions where it says, okay, if they believe that this facility and the operators are unable to secure their delivery operation section, then they can easily add that condition
Okay.
that you cannot do this.
Thank you.
Okay, that sounds like all the questions for you, and we have some for the applicant.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brian Burke. I'm the COO of Versagenics, and thank you for the opportunity for us to be here today. I've been in the industry for 16 years, and I just want to say that truly Emeryville has been the most welcoming community I've ever seen. It's almost unbelievable. So we are very excited for the opportunity to operate here, and I would love to answer all of your questions. So if you want to ask them to me, or you want me to go off my memory, whatever's best for you. I can maybe a few of the things with the bike racks. Maybe start with the small things. We will put in whatever bike racks we need. I personally am going to be riding my bike there just because of the traffic situation. The security plan, maybe to give you just a little bit of a confidence. We have a fully developed security plan for all aspects of our operation, from the manufacturing side, including waste disposal, including how the orders are fulfilled, as Andrea was bringing out, whether it is distribution to another retail outlet or whether it is a delivery retail sale direct to patient. Those are two separate flow processes in the process of the business, and we do have security protocols for both of those. When talking about the particular location, I've already, in fact, at the very beginning, we've already kind of asked about what are the possibilities of putting in a yellow zone on the 67th Street. We'd love to pursue, whatever is involved in that as we go along with the process to allow for loading. As far as the window, which you can plainly see on the front of the building, it is slightly tinted right now, although you can see through it. On the inside is a full rolling door that goes from the top to the bottom, a full metal rolling door. So at night, when no one is there, the rolling door will be down. during the day, if we are not for any reason able to put a reflective coating on the window, a blackout coating on the window, then we can bring the rolling door down. We have no problem with having no visibility inside the facility. There's not going to be any signage on the facility. There's not going to be anything indicating that a cannabis business is going to be operating at that location. So that was kind of some of the things that I remembered, and then maybe some more specific questions I could answer. Maybe about the process flow of delivery, or
Just
That
the
was,
impact of delivery, I think.
the impact of, okay, so when we're
Like
talking,
how often?
okay, yeah, so the two different, I think the two, when we talk about delivery, so if we take the standard delivery for the manufacturing side, the taking in product with it in order to make other products, that will only happen once a week, at maybe twice a week, depending on, but we'll have those scheduled deliveries. That particular aspect will be a part of the security plan that we'll be working hand in hand with the Emeryville Police Department to make sure. Our main goal is public safety and security, as well as making sure that everything that comes in and out of the building is tracked. So as far as the idea of taking a delivery in, we'll have a set time and day that we wouldn't want, exposed to the public, so to speak, but where those deliveries are taken in the most secure way possible from as close to the facility as we can. All of the inside and outside will be covered completely with video surveillance 24 hours a day, and then we have other measures to make sure that processing and incoming of materials for the manufacturing side is done in a completely safe and nondescript way. When we're talking about patient delivery, that will be done also under the guidelines of the state. So if we're talking about fulfilling an order, these are small orders. These orders will be quarantined and assembled in our process, and when they're ready to be delivered to the patient, it won't be done one at a time. There won't be foot traffic coming in and out of the front doors all day long. To give an example, on a busiest day, I would say that perhaps 3 or 4 deliveries would be leaving the front door, but the actual process of from tracking the product to assembling it to getting it into its compliant state to be delivered will all be done inside the facility and inside the locked limited access portion of the facility. So then the last part of the protocol of the security protocol that's on the security plan is having that small package that would be, again, if you place an order, we don't fill that and then go see you and then come back and then go see you and then come back, go see you. We queue the orders up until we have the correct and most efficient amount to make a delivery. And then it falls under, the state has provided guidelines how much we can carry, how that should be carried to the end user. And then that protocol will be followed. So during the day, perhaps 4 to 5 interactions with a certain amount, again, smaller, prepackaged, with invoices and a manifest. So that's kind of the complicated or the confusing thing that has come up with this is that we will have 3 different kind of sets of operations happening on the facility. But under the state, it's all under one license. It's called the micro business license. And so each part of our operation has its kind of own security protocol, but they all move very smoothly between the 3, the 3 kind of areas that product would be kept in. And all product, whether it's product for in the manufacturing section, all the way down to the order fulfillment, whether that's going to go to a retail outlet or whether it's going to go direct to patient, all of that is going to be tracked along the way, and everything will be happening inside the facility, inside the locked facility. Does that help?
That helps.
Okay.
So the once a week delivery of, I guess you'd call it raw material or product to your facility.
Right.
What kind of delivery truck is it that brings that?
Well, that would be because of the way that it's being, when the new laws come into effect, we're going to have to get product from another licensed entity. So if we're going to get a concentrate or an extract with which we're going to infuse into a tincture, we're either going to get that from another entity, a licensed distributor, and they're going to have a distribution and transport license, which they will have insured trucks, and it'll be just like any other delivery. And then if we were to get it from a actual, say, a cultivator that has its own distribution license, then they can actually bring it to our facility too. Our main goal, though, is to have the source material come in from the licensed entities that are already kind of up and going with their transportation in a secure way. So it would be in a truck, but we're not talking about huge, semi trucks, probably box trucks at the most, more likely vans.
And what would be the volume, the maximum volume, each week of product that you think you would be bringing into your facility? Or is that the right way to characterize it?
That's a difficult way to characterize it. With the products that we make, the actual cannabis part of it is often not, it's just, we kind of liken it at times. It's an ingredient. We're not going to be having, hundreds of pounds of flour in any way, shape, or form. Nothing near that. We're not going to be having gallons of oil. If that's kind of, what you're getting at.
I'm getting at is it's just as a bit of a detail, but I think it's of interest because it's taking place in the public right of way. What are the details of how a delivery person goes from the vehicle to the few steps over to the front door? Does the person get out of the vehicle and make sure the vehicle's locked and secure, and then go to your front door? Every delivery, regardless of, actually, let's say any type of cannabis product that is going to come in through those front doors or go out of those front doors for any reason, will be on an appointment, schedule, and with a extra security protocol. So anything that doesn't happen inside the building, we will have another protocol to have it outside the building. So if a driver were to pull up, before he exits his vehicle, our security staff that we're going to have on hand would be able to go to the vehicle and escort into the premises. Anything that happens outside those front doors to anywhere else will be an escorted, process or transaction. I'm not a transaction. That's not the right word, but that's kind of part of the security protocol of making sure that when somebody comes to our facility, we know they're there. We have a record of it, a manifest of it, but also getting them safely into the facility and into the limited area premise where the actual kind of exchange goes. Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Can you speak to the odor control issues of how that?
Yes, yeah, actually, and on the waste disposal. So we have a waste disposal plan also, and the most important part of that is that we want to be as environmentally friendly regardless of the cannabis part of things. We are going to have all of our waste divided, and anything that would have any amount of cannabis waste is not going to end up in any garbage that would end up outside the facility. So anything that is a byproduct of the manufacturing process, anything that has been returned, anything that has been deemed not usable for manufacturing or sale, that'll be quarantined. And then we've actually already identified a kind of a specialized, there in the cannabis space, a specialized waste disposal for cannabis. Now we have part of one of the things I've experienced before in other projects has been, we also want to make sure that we're doing this correctly with what on the operator's permit, what the police department wants. So if they have some extra added things that they want us to do with this waste, then we're happy to do whatever we have to do. But no cannabis waste is going to end up in any way in the garbage outside, in the recycling outside. And in fact, that part of our security, just to kind of go back to that without details, we don't want anything that identifies cannabis. We don't want packaging, anything in the actual garbage or waste that would go to the recycling center or to the waste disposal facility.
To follow on that, in terms of, I mean, I'm assuming that your waste will build up inside your building. You have a small building. You will need delivery at somewhat regular intervals in terms of actually getting it out of the building. What are the intervals anticipated at this time? Do you have a sense?
I would imagine at this time it would, as we get up and started, probably bi-monthly, once every 2 weeks. And then if that actually goes into the odor abatement, because we don't have any consumption whatsoever, and we don't have the processes of all the products that we are doing are really not. They're not processes that other manufacturing might have to worry about, as far as with large amounts of say just flour material, or large amounts of extraction that has to go through several processes. We don't have any of that happening at our facility. So the idea of having waste that is actually going to give off an odor, we need to make sure that it's quarantined. And in fact, part of our plan is to have it in a quarantined area that's also odor proof. And hopefully that if we're able to get it into this container, keep it sealed, we're not going to have to worry about any odor coming from the waste. And we'll have that waste of cannabis that actually has to be treated with the same cautions and processes as the source material. We're required by law to take care of that also, and to track that.
But your processes don't create, I mean, do you have methods for controlling any odors that your processes?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we also have the ability to, and we will be putting in the HVAC system, any type of exhaust that would go out into the street. We will be installing carbon filters as kind of just an added. It's probably a little bit of overkill, but we want to make sure that when they walk by the facility, it doesn't do good that we're not going to have any signs. We have everything. It's just a building. We don't want it to smell like cannabis as people walk by either. It's not, it's not open to the public, and we really would prefer people just kind of not really know what's happening there.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right. This is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing. I have one speaker card from George Martin, and anyone else wishing to speak will have 3 minutes each. And if you haven't given a speaker card, you can sign in on the sign-in sheet.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to address this matter. Clearly, this is groundbreaking areas we're going into here, both in what is being offered here in manufacturing, but as a manufacturer of other products with 130 employees, a real potential problem. But I think it's been addressed. And let me also, I'm George Martin. I am the family owner of the George M. Martin Company. We own 6 properties on 67th Street east of Hollis, and occupy a 7th property. So we are well invested in the area, and this matter is of great concern to us. It was a wonderful presentation, Maru, on how this is being addressed, and I appreciate that. And I think all my major concerns have been addressed with regard to odor, with regard to security, with regard to how the product is going to be going in and out, because clearly security is a huge issue for us as well, since we have a lot of people. One comment that was made that is a little concerning to me, and that is regarding the potential of a yellow zone in front of that property. Again, one of our buildings is directly to the east of this piece, and the tenant that occupies that does park in that area. And if you were to put a yellow zone, that would remove parking that they're using currently. So that could be a concern. But I also understand, again, as a business owner, you do need to have an ability to take your trucks in and out. The good news is on 67th Street, again, being an industrial area, there are trucks and vehicles double parked all the time on there, and it's wide enough that it can accommodate that. So I'm not overly concerned with that. So I just wanted to make the comment that I think all my issues were addressed by the user, by the owner, as well as the Maru and the use permit. Thank you, and I appreciate that. Oh, and I will say I will be speaking on one other property because that also is directly next door to one of our properties. So I'll be a little bit redundant, but I do need to put it on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this application? Okay, I'll close the public, oh, yes, okay. Come on up and introduce yourself. We have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Veronica Whitfield, and I'm a resident of Emeryville. I've been a resident here for over 20 years, and I happen to live off of 67th Street in a 92-unit residential development. So I'm about maybe not even a quarter mile or half a block up from the intended site. I have some concerns about safety and the visibility of the operations, as you all have raised very good questions regarding the delivery in and out. I have some concerns, and I wasn't here at the beginning of the session to hear a little bit more of the background information on the business. But my major concern is the delivery and the times of delivery. Yes, there's stated hours of operation, but you know, being in an industrial area, and of late we have operations that are running almost 24/7. And because we sit tri-city between Oakland, Berkeley, and Emeryville, there's a lot of activity, there's a lot of foot traffic, and there's a lot of crime in the area. We have Amazon Prime doing distribution right across the line. We have a sports center up the street. We have urgent care that is coming to the area. We have on the other end of 67th Street, which is across the railroad tracks, homeless community. I call it snow globe. I mean, and it's amazing how our little area is overpopulated with so much traffic and activity. When I purchased my home, I purchased it across town because I lived off 40th Street for the earlier part of my residency here. And so when I was able to purchase across town, it was nice to be able to have a nice haven from all the traffic and the overflow. And as all of you know, I don't know how many of the commissioners now sit on the board are residents of the city, but Hollis is a parking lot most times of the day, including to the evening. So if we have businesses that are operating up until 8 o'clock, that's going to be an issue. You have AC Transit right across the way. The homeless was convenient or savvy enough to be able to make an encampment up at a building that was vacant, catty corner to this new site. So I'm just really concerned about the exposure and the visibility that this brings to a very small neighborhood. Yes, it's industrial, but it's also residential. So I'm here as a kind of not in my front yard kind of campaign. So if there's more information that can be shared, I have a question maybe to the owners as to their years of experience in these businesses. I understand that Emeryville is trying to bring in growth and help provide to pay bills, but it would be nice to know the experience and if there's other operations that they have.
Thank you.
One more.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Marshall Huggins, and I've too been a resident of Emeryville for over 20 years. I am equally concerned. I live also on 67th Street in the same units that my neighbor does. And we have been experiencing a great deal of traffic in that area for some time, some burglaries, and increased traffic throughout the day, especially on Hollis right at 67th, but I would say between 3:30 and 7, it is a parking lot. It will take you literally 15 minutes to get in an area that should take 2 minutes to get through. I'm concerned about the safety of that operation. I've heard a couple times Emeryville PD and also some other, I forget the name of the document that would need to be approved by the Emeryville PD. But to rely on Emeryville PD to address security and safety issues for that, that's, of concern with me. I mean, especially if this isn't the operation is as large as it is, and we're hearing about one, but I know that there's three. And that, and it's going to be not visible to the public, but at the same time, there is a safety and security issue throughout, I would say, California concerning the cannabis and the delivery and what have you. So I would just, with my concerns, request that the commission just put this over and have more conversations and more research on this new venture within the city of Emeryville.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak on this application? Okay, I will close the public hearing. If the applicant could come back up, if you could state your business experience on this, it would be helpful.
So I got into the industry in 2001, and I started working in Berkeley at Berkeley Patients Care Collective, which was one of the first dispensaries actually in Berkeley, along with BPG and another one that was on Shattuck. My experience is on the retail end of things, and my most recent experience is down in Monterey. I opened up Monterey Bay Alternative Medicine, which was the first brick and mortar dispensary in Delray Oaks in Monterey County. And so one of the unique things that we were able to accomplish there when we went down to the Monterey, or when I actually am from the Bay Area, so when I went down to Monterey to kind of help get the dispensary open, there was a huge stigma, as there always is, around cannabis, and mostly a lot of confusion about what it means. What does it mean to have a place where people go buy cannabis? What does it mean to have that be safe for the public? So one of the key points as to our success there was the partnership that we had with the Delray Oaks Police Department. And it wasn't just something that we talked about. We actually took the building that we had secured, and we apportioned a large upstairs section of it and gave it to the Delray Oaks Police Department as a substation, so that they could be on premises, they could be tied into our security system, and that they could basically see what we're doing all the time. So my experience has been on the compliant and the safety and security end, as well as trying to bridge the gap between the notion that the public often has about how dangerous dispensaries can be and the reality of how successful they can be when they're done correctly, when they're done compliantly, when they're done transparently. And that's, as we are getting into this faster and faster towards the regulations of the state, that's been really the dividing point between which entities are going to last, which ones are going to go away, and which ones are going to be able to accept the new role of a retail outlet. I have experience on the retail outlet as far as in-store dispensing and delivery. And part of the delivery aspect is truly, just like with the manufacturing side of things, it's following standard operating procedures to the T. So this is not just a free form, oh, hey, we got it, we have an order, go to this place and deliver it. There is a strict set of standard operating procedures that is in place now, before any regulators try to say how it should be. That keeps the delivery people safe, that keeps the end user safe, and that keeps the whole operation operating safely. Everyone who is involved, all of the other officers, are also from the cannabis industry. They have been active in Colorado, so they have dealt with this issue of kind of an industry that's changing rapidly and getting used to changing regulation, how to adapt to that, and just making sure that first and foremost, it is safety and security. It is making sure that cannabis is not diverted. It is making sure that people do not end up in any unsafe situation. And that is definitely part of when we're talking about experience, it's something that you have to learn. It's not something that you can just hire a security consultant to come in and tell you how you should do it. It comes with years of seeing other entities make mistakes, and it comes with doing. So, like I said, our main goal before we do anything is making sure that our operation does not have any negative impact on not just our block, but every block surrounding us. And also getting into, I fully agree with the idea of having a dialogue with everyone, a dialogue with the community. We want to talk to everybody. We want everybody to, we don't want anyone to see in what we're doing on the street, but anybody who wants to know about our operation, know who's running it, know, what we're trying to accomplish, we'd like to have that dialogue with people. And if anything else as far as experience? On the manufacturing end, we actually, our CEO is from the nutrition supplement industry, so the actual manufacturing, and when you talk about safety, that's why manufacturing has become, has carved out such an important part in this industry. It was always just cannabis flowers for a long time. In 2003, 2004, when I was in the dispensary, it was joints and brownies, and that was it. And now we have cutting-edge delivery systems, transdermal lotions. We have tinctures and dissolve, capsules. We have the rise of CBD. If you know about that, it's not just about getting high on THC. It's about finding these different components in the cannabis plant and seeing how they work together. That's done through manufacturing. And to be honest, many people in the industry, especially from back in the day, they were just making things in their kitchen. Okay, that's not really manufacturing. So part of the experience we have on the manufacturing side is from the nutrition supplement industry and understanding how the manufacturing process works best. And I think that kind of goes back to my original, I wasn't being flippant by saying cannabis is just an ingredient, but in some cases it is. It's the most important ingredient. But when you go to start making a manufactured product, it just becomes part of the entire process to create this end product that will be useful to people, so they don't have to smoke, so they don't have to eat a big sugary brownie, and that's really where manufacturing has gone. So we kind of have it, both sides of that: the delivery fulfillment part, the non-storefront retail end on the experience side, as well as making sure the products that we have are manufactured, safely and compliantly.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question while you're here?
Yes.
This is a detail again. The front doors of your operation, will they remain locked during the hours of operation?
Yes. In fact, we have the doors to what we're going to actually have two sets of doors. There will be a restricted access area inside the building that no one will be able to get to, even if they do go in the locked front doors that are the front doors. Those doors will remain locked at all times. There will be a second set of locked doors that would only be accessible to certain, employees. Everybody will be on a badge system. Everybody will be on a check-in system, and every square inch of the inside of this building, no matter what area it is will be under video surveillance, as well as the outside on the 67th Street, the entire sidewalk, and on the Hollis side, all the way up to where the next business starts.
So the access to the building would be achieved by somebody coming up to the doors, pushing a buzzer, and then you would see that person on a video screen inside? Yes. Determine whether or not that person should come in or not?
Yes, and part of because we don't have people, the general public, coming into our facility for any reason. Any person coming through that door that's not an employee that's scheduled to work that day would only be there by appointment only. There would be no access for someone. No one can just come up, knock on the door, and come in and look. No one can come in and ask about our products. It's an appointment only style interaction as far as anything that's not scheduled.
Thank you.
I have a question. Related to the safety concerns that were brought up, what type of exterior lighting does this building have?
Right now, I believe that there is one light. Is there a? Yeah, there is a light that is above us, an awning over the front door. And then there is a street light that illuminates the corner of the building. And we, as we kind of get into the actual process, as we start building out and getting things going, we want to make sure that we have adequate lighting, even more than adequate lighting at all times. The only lighting that I think is not present at the time is the adjacent property that is owned by someone else. So that side of the building, which is actually fenced off. But as we move forward, we'd like to have the entire building really lit up.
So is the plan to add more lighting to the outside of the building?
If necessary, if necessary. Right now it seems adequate. It's lit at night when you go by it. There is light over the front door, and the entire corner is well lit. I think it's a bus stop there on the end. But if in the course of the process of going through the operator's permit, if there's any concern about lighting, then we will simply install more lighting.
Thank you.
A question for Maru, actually. I just noticed on some of these applications that they don't actually all have the same title. That this one is a cannabis manufacturing and delivery facility, and the others, should they be all the same, or is this one distinctive?
They should all have the same.
Okay.
Well, so in the agenda, the word delivery is used instead of a non-storefront dispensary facility. And then through our council, we were advised that we need to change that to non-storefront dispensary. And the staff reports, I'm seeing that this particular one is still, the title is delivery, but that's just an error.
Okay,
but
that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion.
Thank you all for your presentations and for the community input. First of all, I just want to make it understood that there are a lot of concerns for the community, the residents, the businesses, I'm sure the police department. This is really uncharted territory. We do have a few states who have been down this road, but for us, it is uncharted, so there's going to be a lot of uneasiness. The one thing I want to make sure it's understood, and I don't know that it's completely understood, so I'm just going to state that understand that the business manufacturing and delivering these products is responsible for their security. You see, Emeryville Police Department will not be present during deliveries, will not be present during anything else happening, but I do like the fact that it is their security system and their security personnel is based on a plan that has been reviewed and approved by the Emeryville Police Department. And the other thing I like is...
Sorry, Commissioner Keller.
Uh-huh.
The Emeryville Police Department hasn't issued any operator's permit.
No, but they will. What I'm saying is this is a plan that they have to look at and approve before anything happens. So I just want to make that clear to the public that this has to be scrutinized and reviewed. And the thing I also like is that the police department has extra authority to add conditions if they don't feel that we've done enough for that. And then the other thing I think is great is that these permits are reviewed annually. So if there is a problem, if the residents find that there is an issue, and that's not just security, but if they find that there's too much traffic or that things aren't being handled correctly, this is one of the few businesses that's going to be scrutinized annually. So even though we're in uncharted territory, we are going to have controls, and we're going to watch this process year after year after year. And it's going to be heavily scrutinized, more so than even liquor store deliveries. And I think, to me, I relate this whole product as we do alcohol, because it's kind of the same thing. So I think what we also have the ability to do is we are in uncharted territory, but we're not the first to be here. So I'm hoping that our police department, our city staff is going to be looking towards those communities in Colorado, in Washington State, in Oregon, who have been down this road, and see what their experience has been and see what the lessons learned from there, and that we, can prevent making those mistakes. So I think that's a really good thing that we're not totally in uncharted territory. I think that the fact that this business is so small and they're not going to have walk-in traffic off the street, that everyone coming to that business, deliveries and all, is going to be an expected person, and it is going to be by appointment. I feel this business is going to be much less impactful than other business possibilities. So although I understand the traffic concerns and neighbor concerns, the delivery concerns, I think these businesses are going to be far less. I'm thinking of Counterculture Coffee that has beans delivered, and those are large quantities of delivery. So I think any place that's roasting coffee is going to have far more impacts in our neighborhood for delivery and things like this than a business such as this. And I do want to kind of remind everyone, as a person who was involved in our general plan update that we did several years ago, I was kind of the person that brought this up, and this portion of our community is designated as an industrial place, and we worked very hard to save that. I was one of the persons that thought that this is part of our community that we need to save, is to have some sort of manufacturing industrial area. And I'm thinking it's even better now because of all the startups for all kinds of businesses and all the makers that we have. So it was intentional that this part of town be manufacturing and be industrial. So I think this is the right business and the right place to put these. And just as an experience, I work for the University of California. I have several lab buildings. I worked for the School of Public Health for 13 years. I now manage 17 buildings on campus. And I think what's not known for the public is that there's a thing called biohazards that have to be handled and maintained. And what I see this company doing and the other companies doing is any hazardous material like that is always contained. It's usually contained in a locker room. And there is a specialized company that comes to pick up those things. They come into the facility. They come with all the protective gear, all the protective containers, and they grab those things and take them out. So these aren't products that sit on the street, and they don't see the light of day on the street. There will be companies that usually come in. So I'm seeing these byproducts and waste products being handled as we do biohazards. And I'm very familiar with that and very comfortable with that. So just a couple things about the actual building and et cetera. I think in talking or listening to the commission, I think we still want to make this neighborhood friendly and open and kind of accessible. And I like the big window in this particular building. I've always thought of making this building a house. I think it would be a really cool condo for that. And I think that window is very important. So what I'd like to see is that we put some kind of white or opaque material on the glass. I really wouldn't want to see blackout or anything reflective. I think just something that makes it so you can't see in, but that light can penetrate into the workspace. And it will keep that space a little more neighbor friendly. And in looking at the photo in the packet here, I don't like that fabric awning. I think it kind of closes off the building and it's going to prevent light, but I know we need to protect the doorway, so I'm thinking a smaller awning that's perhaps glass will keep the transparency there. It'll give you a safe, dry place. So I think those are the comments that I have.
So I concur with Commissioner Keller's comments. I think that, first of all, I want to thank the public, the residents, for coming forward and sharing with us their concerns about security and safety. I think that those are very logical and real concerns, and what staff has done and what the city has done in terms of trying to set up a scaffolding that allows an operation like this to take place, I think at this time sufficiently addresses those issues. But, and let me ask staff, is the operator's permit, is that something that has a public hearing associated with it?
No, there's no public hearing. It was designed that the operator's permit would follow the Planning Commission so that the public would have an opportunity to weigh in, and the police department would have the benefit of the public testimony, but that ultimately the operator's permit is just a staff level permit issuance.
Then I would underscore the advisability of making sure the police department is aware of the testimony that was given today, and that any opportunity for a dialogue that might take place with the public, that could be explored, so that the public feels the level of assurance that it deserves regarding this type of facility.
I can let the commission know that the police department has already reached out to other agencies that allow for medical and specifically recreational cannabis to get sort of what their standard conditions of approval are so that we can start developing our own. And one thing that we learned in going through the RFQ process, so that was where we had various storefront dispensaries that submitted applications. They had to fill out security plans to the extent they could at that point in the application. And we've learned a lot about different security measures, and one of the benefits of that is that if the police department sees something that one business is doing really well, they have the ability to condition that on another business to make them do it as well. So they are working on it, because it is a shared goal that the community be safe.
Right. In any case, I think that this, I mean, obviously this is a product or a process that deals with a product that until recently was illegal and was the subject of a great deal of activity by the Justice Department and by the public as well. So it's logical that people might conclude that this could constitute an attractive nuisance, as it were, that might create illegal activity. However, all the questions that we've asked this evening, the answers to those questions satisfy me that these concerns are being reasonably addressed. And again, the opportunity to revisit the situation every year by the city is also reassuring.
Okay, I also agree with the comments that my fellow commissioners have made. I want to thank staff for putting together these proposals in such a timely way, and I also appreciate the applicant's thorough explanation of your business and answering all of the questions that we have. Your answers made me feel very comfortable to, all the questions that we all had and some of the security concerns that the public has raised. I have a question for staff about whether if residents or neighbors have complaints about these businesses, are they addressed to PD? Should they be addressed to PD if there are any complaints?
I think it would depend on the nature of the complaint.
Nature of the complaints. So, for example, there's an odor issue, then that would come to our department, the planning and building. Okay. But if it is something security related, then it would go to the police department.
Okay. And so I appreciate that the operator's permit will be reviewed annually, because I think it would be a good way for us to, as a city, to have updates on how these businesses are going and, how they're interacting with the community and their overall presence in the city. And just lastly, I appreciate that Emeryville is attracting a diverse manufacturing industry that is low intensity, because it does seem like this is pretty low impact compared to some of the other manufacturing businesses that are there, as Commissioner Keller mentioned. Those are all my comments. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I wanna just agree with many of the comments that you've already heard from the other commissioners. And thank you as well, staff, for preparing the information. And I think I agree that, that the answers that I heard today do allay a lot of concerns. Operationally, it seems as though it's thoughtfully understood in terms of how it's going to operate. That's really helpful in terms of helping our decision making. I do think the reviewed annually is important because this is new. And I think you'll find in a dynamic urban environment that there'll be issues around safety, but the presence of someone who actually has security in the neighborhood will actually deter some crime as well. But it probably won't be a zero-sum game, and so the idea that you have to review it annually and that there is a comment process from the neighborhood, that these are all important components of it. So I think it's, it's got a lot of great checks and balances to kind of welcome in this kind of activity.
One of the comments raised something for me on the condition of approval on odor control, where it is the building department that's addressing that. It seems to me that odor control in this instance is also a safety issue because it's sort of advertising the presence of the substance there. So it says unresolved or repeated violations to order may be a basis for suspension or revocation of the permit or denial of permit renewal. So from that, I'm understanding that this is talking about the operator's permit, and this is also to be coordinated with the police department. Is that correct?
Correct, because the use permit does not require renewal. It's the operator's
Right.
permit. So I can add the operator's permit for clarification.
I think that would be good, because I think, as other commissioners have said, the annual review is going to be important, and I also do appreciate the concerns of the neighbors, but I appreciate the explanations and the extent to which the applicant discussed their safety protocols, their operating protocols, and it seems that a business on that location with 5 employees with 3 or 4 deliveries going out a day in a small vehicle is probably not going to impact the traffic, at least not any more than any other business that would go into that location. So is there a motion on this matter?
I'd make a motion that we approve.
I'll second.
All right. I assume that is with the addition of the correction to condition number 10, that's the operator's permit.
That's correct.
That we're talking about. Okay. Commissioner Banta?
Aye.
Commissioner Keller?
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson?
Aye.
Vice Chair Barrera?
Aye.
Chair Donaldson?
Aye.
5 ayes, the application is approved. This decision may be appealed to the City Council within 15 days.
Thank you. Okay, the next one on the agenda is 6613 Hollis.
Maggie always wants, no, I know who it was. Maggie always wants me to say that. City clerk always does that. Yeah, I miss it.
Okay. So this is a application for using an existing space in an existing building located at 6613 Hollis, which is also the building which houses the Rotten City Pizza restaurant. They are applying for so the rest of the building is about 4,000 square feet, and it used to be formerly occupied by a collective kitchen. And this facility is proposed to serve as an incubator model space and make space available for small cannabis businesses engaged in the manufacture of cannabis products. And it will also give the option of allowing delivery or non-storefront dispensary facility. The hours of operation are noted above, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. with the deliveries, same thing, prohibited between 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. At this time, again, no exterior changes to the building are proposed. So this is the building as seen from 67th Street, and this is the site plan. So you have Hollis Street right here, and this is the Rotten City Pizza restaurant, and the entry would be to the facility would be here. And everything in the hatch is the space that will be occupied by future subtenants. And this is sort of the general floor plan as they hope to divide the building depending on the kind of tenants and their needs. So again, it's very similar to the last application. It's just across the street and therefore in the same zoning district where such a facility is permitted. And again, no change to the FAR. There's no change to the height of the building. And in terms of parking, the requirement for this space is 4 to 7 spaces. As you know, all our requirements for parking are a range. And the proposal is none. There is no space. There's no existing space for parking of autos. And so what so our regulations do allow a business to go in even if there is reduced parking or no parking, provided certain findings are made. And the findings that the commission needs to make in order to approve this is that measures will be put in place to reduce parking demand, such as promoting use of public transit, bicycling, walking, and allowing modified working hours and telecommuting. And the second finding is that the reduction or elimination of the required parking spaces will not result in parking impacts on adjacent users due to overflow parking. So the applicant has submitted a transportation demand management plan, and some of the measures that they will provide are free AC transit passes. They will be providing more bicycle parking than required, encouraging carpooling, allowing telecommuting and flexible work schedules, and providing a guaranteed ride home program. And the DTM plan is attached to the staff report. And the conditions of approval require that any lease and all leases include the above provisions for the future subtenants, and that the measures that are in the plan be implemented, and that a monitoring report be provided within 6 months and then 1 year after start of operation. And if there is anything that is not being met, then they need to fix that. So again, the conditional use permit findings for the use itself, it's exactly the same as the one before, that will contribute to the economic diversity of the city. It is a reuse of an existing building in an industrial zone with compatible surrounding uses, and that between the planning it complies with the planning regulations, and there are conditions of approval that ensure that the bike requirements and the performance standards will be met, and the TDM plan will be implemented and monitored during the first year, during 6 months after the start of operation, after 1 year with the start of operation. The applicant is here if you have questions from him. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer any questions. The staff recommendation is approval, subject to the conditions of approval in the staff report.
Questions for staff?
I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this particular business right. So this, unlike the one we just heard, this is not one company or entity. This is going to be like a makerspace where people come in and it'd be different people doing different things. And okay, so
the owner and the applicant are the same.
Okay. But will they be inviting people in that maybe do different types of products that are
So the idea is that the owner is going through this entitlement process, and then he will lease out the space to different operators. Each individual operator will need to obtain individual operator's permit.
But they won't need to come before us.
They will not come before you, but each of them will come and need the operator's permit and a business license.
So perhaps when the applicant comes up, maybe he can kind of explain his model and what he's foreseeing. Because what I liked about the first presenters, he was totally in control of everything. They did everything. They know everything that's going on.
Right.
This seems a little bit more loose than that.
It is an incubator space. It's modeled. That is their plan.
Yeah.
And therefore it is, I agree, a little difficult to conceive and get that confidence that you would have from the previous applicant.
Okay.
Maru, thank you. Do you have any more?
I'm done with that. Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. Do you have a slide of the site plan or of the first floor plan? I think it's one more down. Shows the interior. There we go. So can you give me a little bit of the background on this? It looks to me like we've got a restaurant in the lower corner there, and then it looks like a restaurant patio, and next to it a storage court. The storage court, is that outdoors?
It's indoors.
Indoors? So it's got a roof on it?
Yes, and here's the door to it.
I see. Well, it just says fence. It says steel security fence, and then high security gate, and then I see a roll-up door just between production and storage. So it struck me that might be outdoors.
I believe it's covered.
It is
Yes,
covered,
yes.
okay. So was the history of this project, was there ever any parking in it? Or was there ever a parking required for the restaurant, or?
No, it's been the restaurant has been there for at least 10 years, if not more. So as far as our records show, there was no parking. They typically use these parking spots, however, these are not on their property. This is the site, well, the public right-of-way. So these, we cannot count these.
Those are perpendicular parking spaces, is that correct?
Correct, and correct.
And they're
in the public right-of-way, so we cannot count them.
right, and so they go right up to the building?
That is,
the building?
yeah.
So
And
it isn't really...
you can actually see it in this picture.
Right, so there's not, is there a sidewalk space there?
No. I mean, you can, it's a very narrow, you can walk through here, but it's
Okay.
very narrow.
All right. And then has the applicant, we went through all these questions with the previous application about security. I don't want to have to ask all the same questions. Did you get some sense of what their security plan was?
Again, I think they are at this time hoping to have their tenants together and then develop plans for the security. So at this point, no. To answer your question, no, I have not quite seen precisely what the security plans would be.
Okay, thank you.
It's worth noting that the business gets the operator's permit. The owner would not get one.
So each tenant, the people who actually will be working, that entity will get an operator's permit.
But we have an applicant owner here, so what is it we're actually approving?
You are approving a space, you're entitling a space for future tenants, which can do different kinds of manufacturing products and do delivery as well. So that's the model. The idea is that a lot of these small businesses, it's kind of a challenge for them to go through this use permit process. So this owner, and he has the form with this space was used by Collective Kitchen. It also has some equipment related to, kitchens, and that's where I think he got the idea of, it's been vacant for about 6 months. So that's where the idea came from, that he himself was never a part of the Collective Kitchen. He used to rent out space to caterers, for example, and then the space has been developed with the equipment still there, because he, as the owner, decided to invest in that and then lease out the space to those collective, to the caterers. So he is proposing to do the same thing, except this time it is for cannabis manufacturers to use different spaces.
So all those questions we had of the previous applicant would apply here as well, and
it would apply here as well, in the sense that a lot of them were security related. I think majority of them were security related, and they would then sort itself out through the processing of the operator's permit.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions on this?
Yeah, I just want to be perfectly clear that each tenant is going to have to go through their own operating permit process, which includes the disposal of any cannabis.
That is correct. That is correct.
Deliveries as well, right?
Each entity. So if there is one entity that is going to make, cookies, and some other entity is making tinctures, and even if they're making edibles, but they're two different businesses, each of them will need to obtain an operator's permit.
So will PD coordinate the different operators' permits somehow? Because if they have businesses that are coming in and out at different times, and I'm not sure what the whole process is for the operator's permit, but it seems like it might be worth it for them to make sure that they're kind of reviewing these operating permits as a whole, because they're all going to be using this business.
Absolutely. And, I mean, yeah, those operators' permits will have to be consistent with each other. And, yeah. Okay. I mean, it's not a huge space at the end of the day. It's less than, it's like 4,000 square feet. So we are talking about, depending, no more than 2 or 3 operators, possibly.
So maybe they don't, maybe this is a premature question, but it looks like there is a vehicular gate on this side elevation that interfaces with what looks like common space for the restaurant.
This one, the patio?
The space in between the vehicular gate and the high security gate.
On the right.
No, up above where your mouse was before, there. So can a car come in there to do deliveries and a person from the restaurant walk out to the patio area at the same time?
Yes.
That is a very good question. I'm not sure. Perhaps, yeah. Yeah. I believe, I'm not sure whether there's a curb cut there or not.
Well, Marie, what I'm seeing is the
Yes,
delivery
there
or
is.
loading is on the opposite side of the building. They're saying, loading is going to be here. So I don't know that they're anticipating using the gate off of Hollis as a delivery point.
Well, that would be a question, I guess, the
Yeah, we do
applicant
need to
can answer.
clarify.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, can we clarify if that's
Yes.
going to be the case?
we
And
need
if-
to get, are there any questions for staff before we go get the applicant up?
This may be for the applicant, but just try him here first. I think, you hazarded a guess of 2 or 3. I'd love to know the actual anticipated number. I know we don't have the operators in this process yet, but I think really beginning to anticipate how many and what what the potentials are, that it is important at this stage. And then this is different than the last one because they're multiples. So not only do they have external security, now they have internal security in terms of, employees.
So the state is in the process of having regulations which allow these different tenants to share the space inside and what kind of barriers that need to be. So that is within the state's jurisdiction, which is why we at the local level are not getting into it.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and then I do really want to understand that storage court because I know people trying to get as close as they can to storage.
Okay.
So if I just may, so the Planning Commission's sort of focus on the application is really dealing with the land use impacts at this site, and which business in that building is generating that impact is maybe not necessarily relevant, whether it's business A or business B, and that could change over time. So it's, for the Planning Commission, it's really to look at the land use impacts of the activity at this site, and then what the police department does is focus on the individual business. And that is also what the state will do, because each business has to have its own premise, and premise is a bit of a controversial term right now. And then on top of that, each business has to be able to track and trace from seed to sale or to disposal. And so when you mix that all together, you should have a site that would have any impacts mitigated.
Well, that does actually sort of bring up a question about land use, because this site is half public open eatery and half manufacturing. And so that's, for me, just as a compatibility question about manufacturing and restaurant. Do we have any other manufacturing and restaurant combinations?
I don't know.
I can't think of any.
Although, one thing I would comment with the manufacturing is that this is, they're limited to non-volatile manufacturing. And so one thing that I've learned throughout the process, and this sort of goes back to what the previous applicant said, is that cannabis is one ingredient. And so if they're manufacturing cookies or brownies or some other edible, cannabis is just simply one ingredient. And in fact, the facility I toured manufactured chocolates, and while cannabis was very important because it was the most expensive ingredient, their whole operation actually went into what's important to have really good chocolate. And that was what was driving the parameters of their operation, is how do you make good chocolate that happens to have cannabis as an ingredient. So I don't know if that helps you.
Does that change the classification at all? I mean, is this really a restaurant to restaurant? Is it, I mean, does it put a restriction on what kind of manufacturing happens there or not?
Well, it is, we've put in non-volatile, because if it's volatile, then we want to look at that a lot closer. But it's, you know, it could just be baking cookies.
Right, but this is a classification issue? I mean, are they the same classification or are they different classifications?
You mean the two different uses on the site?
Yeah. Are they, it's all manufacturing, and it's just, that just depends on the use as a subjunctive of the manufacturing classification?
You mean the different businesses that would go into this incubator space? Would they all be the same use classification? Is that your question?
Well, I think they would.
Yes.
And
a
then,
restaurant is not that use classification.
Okay, and
it's
that's
a
what
different use classification.
Yeah, I was just trying to clarify that.
It's a restaurant.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Just making sure.
Yeah.
It is still
So
manufacturing.
no cookies will be produced and sold at that restaurant, if that's what you're getting at. There will be no retail.
Not really what I'm getting at, but you know.
Yeah, if I may, if what I'm hearing is that she's asking, is it allowable for a restaurant and this other type of business to be cohabitating, and is that compatible and okay?
There's no restriction on that.
There is no restriction.
That's
There's
what I think.
nothing.
Yeah, that's what I was
And Chair Donaldson, if I may, getting back to this land use thing here, I think what we're addressing in this is land use, because it's kind of confusing on what this use is going to be. And so we keep saying that cannabis is just an ingredient. What I'd like to do, because cannabis is such a volatile ingredient in many ways, basically it is a commodity that's worth money. So rather than saying this is cannabis, pretend it's money. Okay, we're going to be handling money in all these different spaces. And the way I'm seeing these different spaces, because they're unidentified, I'm looking at it as kind of like Swiss cheese. And there's all these holes where all this money is going to be playing, because cannabis is a money value commodity, and it is a high theft potential. So this is what I think our concern is that the first one to me was a slam dunk. This to me in land use is very confusing. I just don't feel that I have the same assurances that they're all going to. That is just kind of the clearing up, and yeah, okay, so it's more of a comment. Yeah.
Okay.
She always gets me on that.
Maru, can you tell me, do the police or does the city or does the state have any requirement that any cannabis-related waste is managed by a licensed cannabis waste disposal service?
I believe so. Andrea, are you aware at the state level, not at the operators level, but at the state level?
I don't know, except for the fact that everything has to be tracked from seed to either sale and it's consumed, or if it's diverted from the production process and it's into waste for some reason, for it's contaminated or something like that, it is documented. I don't know if there's specifically licensed waste haulers.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Would the applicant come up and let us know what's going on?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jerry Chin. I represent the applicant, Jonas Bernstein. He apologizes he can't be here today, but I'm here and very available and happy to answer all of your questions. If I may, perhaps I can start off by answering some of the questions that have been raised during Miru's presentation. Number one, just for, I don't have a laser light on my pen. What am I thinking about?
Oops. It's a little jumpy.
It is, huh?
Yeah, you can figure it out.
Well.
Here we go. Okay. This area is an uncovered space. It is outdoors. But these gates, as you can see, are all locked gates to be incorporated in our security plan, which I will discuss in a moment. But they do require ID card access, very similar to the type of system that the previous applicant had described. This is pretty much standard industry practice to have ID card access to any type of sort of public, well, this is not a public right-of-way, but any place where you can enter into the facility will be sort of locked with an ID card system. Now, the only, this part of the building that I'm highlighting here, all right, which is the interior space, the interior space only has one access to the public right-of-way, which is right here that I'm highlighting on 67th Street. That does include the roll-up gate that was mentioned, and that roll-up gate, yes, you can drive a vehicle into the roll-up gate, close the roll-up gate, and therefore any type of transfers of cannabis products are within the facility, unable to be seen by the public in the on 67th Street. There is also a door right next to the roll-up gate. That door will also have an ID card system to prevent entry by anybody who shouldn't be there. In terms of I guess the just to address the security issues, especially as it relates to multiple tenants. The subtenants, well, perhaps it's a good idea to explain the business model first of how the subtenants work, okay? Commissioner Keller, you mentioned a great idea, or great corollary, which is the makerspace, okay? Jonas and maybe some of the people here on the commission are have met Jonas before or worked with him before. He's owned many decades-old businesses here in Emeryville. But his idea was this. Craft manufacturing for cannabis. That's essentially it. We want to unleash the sort of creative energy that a lot of cannabis entrepreneurs have locally here in the Bay Area. One of the hardest things for cannabis entrepreneurs to obtain in order for them to operate a fully licensed and regulated business is the real estate question. It is very hard, and just generally, Bay Area real estate is very hard to obtain, but especially for cannabis businesses. In Jonas, in his sort of ideating and also discussions with the people in Emeryville, to have one centralized location, at least for 2 or 3 tenants, where they can share the costs of real estate and also share the technical expertise that you can gain in terms of addressing security, in terms of addressing public safety, and also parking and transportation. If you can share that knowledge in a shared space, that's preferable to having 2 or 3 different spaces spread out around town in Emeryville. So that was the sort of genesis of Mr. Bernstein's idea to have a cannabis sort of incubator space at this location. Okay, so it's sort of of course there's sort of confusion as to who is actually here. Well, maybe at this point, but once leases are signed, those leases will, of course, say that, okay, the subtenants need to obtain operating licenses with Emeryville PD. In addition to that, they must obtain state licensing, and that's a shorthand phrase to mean that they must follow over 100 pages of regulations as it relates to security, odor control, community relations, taxation, all track and trace, all of those things. Us in our application to the city of Emeryville, we make it clear that we lay out a template, okay, that addresses security, that addresses transportation, all the issues that have been addressed in our CUP application. That is the template that all the subtenants must abide by, not only because we're going to write that into our sort of lease agreement, which is a civil agreement, but also because they have to follow the state regulations, which we are abiding by as well. So there's sort of no, or there at least should be no confusion as to what the subtenants are sort of, following the rules and regulations. They will follow the state rules and regulations, as will we. Okay, so in addition to, just addressing that outdoor covered space, also want to address the waste management issue. So the state regulations do state clearly that all cannabis waste needs to be mixed with non-cannabis waste, and the resultant product has to be less than 50% cannabis. Once that happens, then commercial waste haulers can take that trash and treat that trash as just like regular trash. But the process of sort of mixing cannabis waste with non-cannabis waste to get a less than 50% resultant combination of trash. That's new regulations from the state, but those are the regulations that we and also all cannabis businesses statewide will follow. And I guess one last thing, just to be super clear here, the pizza restaurant, right? Okay, even though it's on one APN, these are sort of separate structures, and I'll go to the photos in 1 minute to show you sort of to demonstrate to you how these are separate structures. But the pizzeria is a 2-story structure that is completely separated by walls, hard walls here, and also gates, okay, that separate the pizzeria restaurant, including the patio space that I'm sure a lot of you guys have been to Rotten City Pizza, enjoyed the patio out there. I have as well. But this patio space and the pizzeria is separated from the internal of the marijuana facility, okay, by hard walls here, here, and along here, and then also by gates that, again, will have the ID card locking system, all right? I believe those are the sort of notes that I made while I was listening to your questions earlier. So if you have any, so hopefully they clarified some of the questions that you did have, but if you have any further questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I do. So I guess I was curious to know how the space that's to the north of the pizzeria in between the 2 gates is going to be used, because that seems like space that both the incubator space and the pizzeria might have some kind of interface there. So I was wondering, do you folks know how you're going to use that space? If deliveries are going to come through there, if that's going to be pedestrian access?
Sure thing. Thank you for that question. So this is, no deliveries will come in through this side of the building. Even though, although this is an outdoor space, this is more, well, as you can see, storage court. It's a storage space, so it's not, it's not a delivery space. All the deliveries or any sort of entrance into the entrance into the inside of the marijuana facility will occur on this side right here, only through this door and through the roll-up gates here. Okay.
And I thought I heard you say that cars can enter through that space. Is that correct?
Yes. So this roll-up door is wide enough to allow essentially a van. So yeah.
And can the van go through the next set of doors?
No.
In the loading area, there's a roll-up door, and then it looks like there's another set of doors at the back side of the.
Come down to your loading zone. You have the roll-up door, and then you have 2 swing open doors. Keep going down. Keep going down there. Right. Those doors, and then the doors interior. Go up right there. Those are 2 sets of doors. So the roll-up door and the swinging doors are both large enough for a vehicle to go through.
Yes.
I think that's your question?
Yes, that's my question. Okay, they are? Okay.
Yes.
And then it looks like there's also a roll-up door into the storage court, too. So that would be big enough for a van, too.
This roll-up door, this is, again, not intended as a drive-through. So this wall and section here will be hard cake, like there won't be any opening or exits there. It will be a hard wall.
And can I ask a question? Is the intention that that the storage court is, I mean, it looks like it's part of this entitlement. So the storage court would be a usable part of the manufacturing facility?
We defer to the Planning Commission and any sort of land use sort of conflicts. But if we are able to use this as storage space, obviously in a secure manner, not storing any kind of cannabis product in the storage space, then we would use that as a storage area. But if that conflicts with any sort of land use regulations, then we are prepared to not use it as a storage area.
Okay. Yeah, because you were characterizing the separation of hard walls. I would agree with that characterization between the two-story building and the manufacturing facility. I'm not sure I'd agree with that between the patio and the storage court. But if it's non-cannabis storage, it potentially could still be in this application. So,
from our review of state regulations, that would be allowed as long as the cannabis activity is enclosed in a enclosed space that is fully secure. So yeah, maybe this is a good opportunity to discuss our security plan without going, delving too much into the details, which will be covered in the operating permit. But yes, we intend to have 24/7 live feed monitoring, video cam monitoring of all internal spaces, as you can see, and also external spaces. As you can see, the marks of the cameras here. Okay, there should be 17 cameras, and we've ensured that the placement of these 17 cameras does cover sort of all the internal and also exterior spaces. In addition to live video security, we will also hire a security company to provide 24/7 patrol security as well. Like the commissioners mentioned, security is definitely our responsibility. It's not the PD. It's not Emeryville Police Department's responsibility. Obviously, we're going to work with the PD in partnership to prevent and also to solve any crimes that do occur, but we absolutely are taking full ownership of the security plan. So in addition to just sort of the cameras and also the in-person security company that will provide 24/7 patrol. We also have the ID card system that we described. The ID card system will be placed on all exterior doors, which include public right-of-way doors over here, and also these doors here. All of these doors will be, have the ID card system. In addition to that, because we have tenants inside multiple tenants inside our facility, the internal spaces for the individual tenants will also have ID card systems, and also obviously these are hard walls as well. Okay, so having hard walls and also having an ID card system to separate the individual tenants will give the tenants their sort of own storage space, office space, what have you. What they are sharing, and this is the business concept, what they're sharing is this space here, like production space, which will have commercial kitchen equipment, stoves, ovens, things like that. Also the packaging space as well. All right, so that's what the sort of subtenants would be sharing.
How many people were occupying the building when it was the kitchen?
Commissioner Donaldson, I don't have that answer for you. I can give you an estimate, and then I can provide you with a definite number. But my estimate at this time is about 10 subtenants who were doing sort of food preparation. They were, sort of caterers and things like that. But I don't have the exact figure, but my estimate is 10 right now.
And it says in the staff report, hours of operation 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, and on the narrative here it says proposed operating hours will be 24/7. Which is it?
I believe the code, the Emeryville City Code, has limited the hours of operation from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Right? So we would be following that code, in terms of restricting operating hours.
And it says that drivers would be directed to park at Emory Tech. Do you have any relationship with Emory Tech at this point?
No, we do not have any business relationship or any relationship with Emory Tech, except that they are conveniently located down the block, so that, you know, any sort of people who do choose to drive, which we do not encourage in our TDM plan, but for people who do choose to drive, instead of clogging up the streets and clogging up the parking, we'll direct them to sort of, you know, avail themselves of the parking facilities down the street.
But is that a public garage, or do they have to have permission to use that?
It is not a public garage. Well,
And so
you
in
mean a
order to
public
use it,
garage
you'd have to get permission from the
Well, you would
owner?
have, from my understanding, you have to pay, so it's a pay-for garage. You know, you pay to park in their garage facility.
But anyone from the public can park in it.
Yes, I believe so, yes.
I think we need to clarify that, make sure that that's a possibility before we count that as a TDM measure.
So,
Other questions?
yeah,
Yes.
I have some questions. So, do you know, you mentioned that you thought there were up to 10 tenants in the previous use of the building. So how many people were inside the building? Tenants, I mean, were there 10 operators plus employees?
Yeah, sure thing. So thank you for that question, Commissioner. You know, as Jonas operated, you know, commercial or collective kitchen for many years, he developed a very good scheduling process so that not only you don't have, you know, multiple businesses bumping into each other, but you also don't sort of have conflicting foods being prepared at the same time, because you know what, sometimes you know, you want to prepare this type of food, it conflicts with another type of food. So that type of system in terms of scheduling would be used for our medical marijuana subtenants as well. So that would hopefully address, you know, your concern, Commissioner, in that you won't have too many people using the facility at the same time. That's why we wanted to have expanded hours and flexible work hours as well, so that people can manufacture maybe some, you know, it'd be easier to manufacture in the morning or later in the evening, whatever the case may be. Although we might have 10 tenants for the commercial kitchen use, they can come in on a rotating schedule. Same type of concept with the medical marijuana subtenants as well.
So I'm looking at this plan. Are you proposing any changes, or what? Am I looking at an existing set of walls, an existing bathroom, existing loading area, et cetera? Or are these representing improvements that you're proposing to the building?
There are no proposed external changes to the building. Internal changes would include just putting up the separating walls, which essentially is drywall, and then also the ID card system door locks. So that's the construction that is planned for this project. And just to make note that they are all internal sort of construction changes.
So I see one exit door at the entry, and then I see a couple of doors that connect to the storage court, which is outdoors, correct?
That's correct.
And then there's been discussion about the gates that you have, the double gates that you have in the storage court that face Hollis and face the vehicular gate that's there.
Okay.
Now, since there's been this discussion about the kind of the intersection of activity there that might be pose a conflict, are you proposing to keep those high security gates that you have noted there at the at east end of your storage court? Are you proposing to keep them permanently closed? And if not, when will you be using them, and what will you be using them for?
Right. So, Commissioner, we do not intend, we do not intend to have any type of marijuana activity in this storage court area. So maybe we should discuss this section a little bit more. All the marijuana activity, whether that's, you know, manufacturing or transportation of product or removal of trash, will occur only through these doors. These doors right here. Okay. These gates, although they do provide, I guess, entry and exit into the storage court area, there is no marijuana activity in this area. Now, Commissioner, I do not have the answer for you whether we do intend to close this gate on a permanent basis. I would say that in discussions with the city of Emeryville, if it's determined that, you know, having a gate, and I completely understand, you know, you have people enjoying pizza, you know, on a patio, maybe, you know, it might be a little bit too close to the manufacturing activity that is occurring in this enclosed space. But just to let everyone know and to be clear that this outdoor space has no marijuana activity in it, and this space is locked and gated so that I guess patrons of the separate business, the pizzeria, will not have access to this storage court area.
So what will go on in the storage court if you're not going to put marijuana activities there or store marijuana products?
It could run the gamut of any legal activity to storing boxes or storing pallets or any type of allowed storage activity. Yeah.
Okay, so I just am counting 3 security cameras that you've got out there. So it looks like it's teed up to be marijuana-related activities. But if you're telling us that's not the case, then we'll take that on face value. So
and Commissioner, I apologize for interrupting. If I can also point out that we also have cameras on the exterior of this side of the building as well. So we, part of our security plan is, is to not only monitor the inside of our building, but also the outside of our building on this side and also on this side as well.
Right. So on you mentioned you have security cameras on the street side by the loading and entry area. So those security cameras are going to go to where? Is there going to be like a central manager of the entire space, or does each tenant have his own feed to the security cameras, or how, and if it goes to a central place, where would that place be?
Okay, the central security monitoring is located inside of the marijuana facility. It will be an office for the incubator space to sort of monitor security. In terms of whether the subtenants would have access to the live feed, that's something to be determined according to state and also local regulations. If it is determined that we should share that video feed, as sort of landlords and tenants to both collaboratively, be monitoring security, then we will do that.
Okay, so the loading area you have off to the street next to the entry, it's already been asked of you about those double doors. They're not wide enough as drawn. I mean, unless this is just strictly diagrammatic, those loading doors there are each one looks slightly less than 3 feet, so the total width would be 6 feet, which is really not wide enough for a truck to get through. So just want to be satisfied that your ultimate product or your ultimate build out includes doors that will allow a truck to come all the way through, because that would be integral to your security plan for delivery and disposal or dispensation of your product, correct?
That's correct. So if I'm going to try to go to some of the photos of the exterior.
They're not on this.
Oh, they're not?
They're not. Only the first photo that I showed of the building, not the other photos that you submitted.
Okay.
So if you can get back to the plan, I got one last question for you.
Okay, sure thing.
So the garbage up in the upper right there, the garbage area, that's used by both the restaurant and the facility that you're talking about?
Currently, that's just that's currently being used by both the restaurant and the commercial kitchen, but with regulations, as it relates to pre-mixed. So when you have cannabis that's pre-50% mixed, it has to be within the cannabis facility or the marijuana facility, because it's treated as marijuana because it's less than 50% mixed. Once you mix the cannabis and you have a resultant mix that's less than 50% cannabis, then that trash is treated as regular trash. And that, the state has said that that can be treated as regular trash, can be disposed of and stored as regular trash once, you know, you meet that 50%.
Okay, so once you do the mixing, you're able to put it into that area over there, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And that area, you have access to the area off the sidewalk or from the restaurant patio?
No, so this garbage area, there's a wall separating, I guess, the public street here, right? And also there are walls on this side separating it from the patio. So yeah.
Right, so how do you get in there to put the garbage
There's a gate
in?
here. There's a gate right there.
Well, I see a gate, that's an exit gate from the patio to the street.
Okay.
That's not a gate into the garbage area. I'm just curious, do the people who are in the production and packaging and cannabis-related space, do they have to come out to the street with the garbage, walk around to Hollis and the sidewalk, and then come in and open the doors to that garbage area and put their garbage in there? Or are you proposing, or is there some other way for them to get in there?
Okay. So when marijuana is still marijuana before it's been mixed, right? Everything has to be secured inside. But once it has been mixed and therefore it's garbage, then it can be treated as such as garbage. And, you know, if it's required that we take our garbage out through these doors and bring it to this location, obviously along this route, or if we are allowed to, we can take the trash out through this side and place the garbage here. Okay. Ultimately, the trash will end up in the public right-of-way when the trash haulers come and collect the trash. Similar situation to the previous applicant. But again, I'd like to make it a point to be, you know, stated that once trash or once marijuana has been converted into trash, it's trash.
We understand that.
Yeah.
So for the product, for the waste that you do have that's generated inside the facility that is not mixed 50%, but remains above 50%, will you have a licensed service disposing of that?
You cannot dispose that product by anyone. That product needs to be mixed with regular trash. So we wouldn't be disposing any of the waste cannabis before we mixed it.
Well, I need to be further educated on the subject by somebody who can shed some light on it. Thank you for your responses.
Do you have questions?
I have a couple questions for staff. First of all, has the police department reviewed the concept or the business model of this particular plan yet to kind of give us an overall sense of how they feel about this, or is it just going to be reviewed when it comes to actually looking at the permits?
So they have not seen this particular plan, but they are aware. I generally spoke to them about these three applications and what they were planning to do, because it's not only this application that will have tenants that we don't know, but also the next application, they also have, you know, they're going to be themselves tenants, and then they will also have a subtenant. So the police are aware that they are going to be looking at applications of such models, but they have not looked at individual plans.
Any feedback? And I understand we're having this special meeting because we need to make a decision before the first of the year. And is that like critical to anything, or?
So the last time that I looked at the information related to timelines, there was a deadline of submitting information to the state by December 20th in order to get the temporary license from the state at the beginning of the year.
By
That is
December
why-
20th?
Which is today.
Correct.
So like midnight, December 20th?
I don't know. They still have to get the operator's permit after tonight, and so what my understanding is happening is we simply send a letter to the state saying where they are in the process, what we've approved, what we anticipate will happen, and send it on to the state. It allows them to get into the queue to get their state license. And I do have to say that since the city of Emeryville is not applying for any license, I haven't really educated myself on the state licensing process of what the applicant has to do to get that license.
So if they don't get a temporary license as of application in, there's still going to be a process for another round of licensing, I presume?
Yes. The issue, or the fear, I should say, is that there's going to be a huge backlog with the state, and they'll be in a lower priority.
So can you make it just simply stated, if this project were approved tonight, does it gain some tremendous advantage in terms of scheduling and timing for permits from the state versus if it were not approved, which would put it at what kind of disadvantage?
So for this particular project, my understanding is the owner would not be obtaining a state license. It would be the tenants that would obtain the state license, and it would be the tenants that would have to apply for the operator's permit from the police department. And so they would not be in the queue to get a temporary license at the beginning of the year.
So they're going to be into the next year in any case, because the tenants haven't been identified yet.
That would be correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, too. Okay, any other questions for the applicant or for staff or whatever? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Right, this is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this application? And if you can sign in when you're done or fill out a speaker card afterwards, that's fine.
Hi there, my name's Keith Sitch and I'm a resident of Albany. I'm co-founder of a cannabis manufacturing and distribution company called Sunderstorm. We're based in Los Angeles. We've been in business for 2 years, and I just signed a letter of intent to rent about half of the space in Jonas's building. And the intention is really to put 2 or 3 companies in the space, and it's not going to be like, I think, a large volume of people in the space. Just wanted to give you a little bit of our background. We've been in business for 2 years. My partner and I are both Stanford grads. I worked on Wall Street for 13 years and have an MBA from NYU. I've been an entrepreneur in different industries, including real estate development. I'm really interested in being in this space because it's business with ethics. The product that we produce is significantly changing people's lives for the better. I'm actually, even though I'm the co-founder, I'm on the backup of our toll-free number, so I get calls every day from patients throughout California. A call I just got 2 days ago was from a woman who said her father has had 12 different surgeries, including 3 back surgeries. And since she's been taking our CBD product that you spray under your tongue, he says that her dad has had his first pain-free day in 20 years. And so I know that our product is making a difference in people's lives. So we're currently based in LA, where we do oil extraction. We basically make gummy bears, vape pens, cookies, and topical creams. And so in the 2 years that we've been in business, we've never had a security problem where anybody has broken into our building and any of our inventory of oil or finished product has ever been missing. We have delivery drivers going around Southern California. None of our delivery drivers have actually had a burglary or had a problem on the road. So we have experience in the industry, and now we're looking for a home in Northern California. And Jonas and I have been speaking for the last month, and we're very excited about moving to our business in Northern California to the city of Emeryville. We can bring jobs to the space, and I have over 35 years of experience in business. So we take the business very seriously, and we intend to be really good business neighbors for the city of Emeryville. I'll just state that we're looking at taking kind of an upper quadrant, and I've been working with Jonas about how we can have secure premises. One of the reasons why I brought this is a printout of the state regulations for manufacturing and for distribution, basically here, so that there are very specific protocols for security, for storage, for waste disposal. And we must comply with all of those rules in order to basically get a permit. And so I'm here to help answer any questions if I can help you at all. Thank you very much. And timing is an issue. One of the reasons why we're coming to Emeryville is because you're fast to get along with the plans. Being compliant on the 1st is critical for our business, critical for jobs that we can bring here. And actually, if it means a couple of month delay for it, we would be seeking premises in another location or another city. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
I just wanted to give some information because we recently had a meeting, a seminar with the manufacturing from the state, and the question was asked about the December 20th deadline, and the gentleman is correct. In order to be compliant on the 1st, if you want to be operating, there's a 10-day window from when you submit your temporary application to get a temporary license from the state. Once you get the temporary license from the state, you have 120 days to apply for the actual license. So that December 20th deadline is in order to be able to operate compliantly on January 1st. It's not just some strange date that they picked. It's that they imposed a 10-day waiting period. So if we as a manufacturer right now that want to be able to submit the temporary application, we need to have something from the local jurisdiction that says that we are allowed to operate there, and then the state has 10 days to contact the local jurisdiction and see if it makes sure validate that that's true, and then the temporary license is granted, and then there's a 120-day period for where that applicant can then go through the regular license. So I just wanted to provide some clarity on that.
So when the state says you have to show something that you have local approvals.
Yeah, local approval. And from what they were told us, it can be either, if there has been an entity or a cannabis business that has been up and operating permitted already, obviously that's a permit. But they'll also accept a letter or document from a city official. We were given, and again, now I don't know how official this is, but we were told from like a city attorney, a city manager, somebody in authority from the city government on a city letterhead that gives a written statement saying that yes, this entity is in the application process, has been approved to some extent, and so then they can continue on with the state.
Your project has been approved, correct? We just heard your project, is that right?
Right.
So are you planning tomorrow to write a letter to the state that says I got planning approvals?
There's an actual application. We have to submit premises diagrams and fill out a sheet.
And does it require any city confirmation?
Yes, it requires some type of written document from the city.
Which in this case, I guess...
To kind of shed some light on this, so for example, the Planning Commission resolution would be given to the applicant and included in their application for the 2 storefront dispensaries where there was a city council resolution saying that they are authorized, they're deemed qualified to get an operator's permit from the police department. My understanding is that has been sufficient for those businesses at the state level. The state has contacted the city, and we will prepare letters advising the state of where the business is in the application process. It's very fluid at the moment as to getting the approvals lined up.
Okay, but so then to get back to my previous question, in this particular situation that we're looking at, the application we're looking at right now, the urgency of having an approval, does it apply equally to this one, to have a December 20th approval as it did to the prior?
Well, I had given you the answer before that that the owner himself doesn't obtain the operator's permit, wouldn't obtain the license, it would be the business. You then heard testimony that there is somebody who is looking to lease the premises and to be up and running as close to the beginning of the year as possible.
Right, so they will probably be applying to the state and use the...
And that business would then apply for the operator's permit from the police department.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, did I close the pub? Okay, another speaker, yes? And this is for the Rotten City Pizza site.
Hello again, Veronica Whitfield, resident of Emeryville, 20 years. Just as a general question, and I guess regarding the build out, there was a considerable concern and question regarding the subtenants and the number and the quantity in the way of staffing and or the number of businesses in the place. And looking at the layout and the floor plan, the production area is all centered around where the tenants would be operating independently if they're not on the production floor. You had mentioned that there would be a plan with or coordination with the EPD department for a security plan, and we're speaking in regards to safety, but is there any way in from the fire department regarding the safety of the employees and evacuation, as they are all kind of boxed in around or behind the working areas where the cooking and the kitchen and the ovens would be? So that would be a safety concern. And using a comparison of the other business plan that was approved, they only had one entrance in and out, and there was gates and metal doors that would secure the premises during the day. And again, that raises a safety issue as well that should be addressed.
Thank you. Yes?
Hello again. I had no intention of speaking on this particular proposal, but this is very unique compared to the others because this is an owner that is applying, and then the tenants who you have absolutely no idea in the world who they are, nor do we. And the reason I'm saying this is at some point there's going to be individual permits granted to the actual operators of these businesses, and will that become public scrutiny at some point? And the reason I'm asking is, will police department be doing background checks with regard to their ability to be in this location? And the reason I ask is we have a former employee that worked for us that was a cannabis grower and supplier and processor, and we have a workplace violence restraining order on this person that he cannot come within a very long distance of our company because of what he did within our group. And I'm all of a sudden I'm looking and saying, gee, probably not going to happen, but I would sure like to know if this gentleman decides that he wants to be part of an organization like this. So I don't know whether this body can do anything about that, or that has to go to the police department, or whether they do a background check that looks and says, because they know about, he is registered with the city of Emeryville with regard to the restraining order, but sometimes things get through. So I'm just making that statement to this body. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this application? Okay, I'm closed the public hearing. Commissioners?
I would like to just comment on the question that the resident raised about the exiting requirements. It's my understanding that the California Building Code establishes exiting requirements based on occupancy type and square footage. It's not something that we look at here in our process, but when the plans go to the building department, if they need any building permits, they review it based on the California Building Code that will determine how many exits this particular building needs and where they need to be located, because there's distance requirements for the exiting. So the building department will review that and make sure that they comply with the code.
Thank you. Keep
sure.
going.
Okay. And I guess, kind of one of the issues that I have with this proposal is that there is an area that does have, interface between the cannabis manufacturing business and a restaurant use, where there is going to be people sitting out in the patio area. And I guess I just would, if we move forward with this, I would like to see that there are some limits on deliveries, even though I understand that, the representative of the applicant mentioned that there won't be deliveries within that space. There is a curb cut and a large gate, and it seems like there is space for a vehicle to access that point. And I would just like to make sure that any activity in that area, including garbage mixing, doesn't occur during the business hours when there are people that are going to be occupying the patio and, potentially going in and out from space to space. For now, those are all the comments that I have, and I might think of something else later, but.
Yeah, I'll say my comments. I do feel like this is a little bit different than the other one because of that separation between owner and operator. We did have an opportunity to really talk to the operator and understand the operations. In this case, those two entities are separate, and we're not gaining that same level of confidence. So I think the question, and some of the questions, I think even some of the more basic level of confidence around the parking situation is also a little bit questionable, with the knowing exactly if that is a paid for public structure or not, and just it being very clear. So I even sort of some of the other things that were that seem more functional. This is a larger building. It does actually have parking requirements, and you're asking for that exemption. Although I appreciate the TDM plan, and I like to see uses that don't require additional parking. Again, there's still questions embedded in this, and so I think that's sort of where I'm getting to in terms of decision making. That being said, manufacturing of this type, reusing a building, I think your application has those elements, which are all great things. So I think those are my comments, is that they're things that I see real great potential, some good consistency with where we want to go, but I'm left with some questions unanswered.
Steve? Yeah.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to say that I support the concept of this. I like thinking out of the box. I like the whole idea of makerspace and being creative with this. But currently, I agree with Commissioner Thomason that there's a lot of unanswered questions here. This is a very unique thing. The parking was something that I definitely put here. How can we say that the TDM program is going to be adequate when we don't know how many people are going to be employed at this location? So I don't know that. Giving the waiver for parking is adequate. Say you have 25 people working here. We didn't discuss, I've been looking through the paperwork, and it could be just that I didn't find it, but I'm not seeing anything about delivery times. I understand the operations time is 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., but I didn't see anything about delivery times. But more importantly, I heard somebody talk about a standardized template for the project plan. I think that should have been shared with us so we may have gotten a better idea. It's just fraught with a lot of unanswered questions. So my proposal tonight, and then, I was kind of a little taken back by the comment that this needs to be approved tonight or we're going to go to another city. I would hope that you would work with us, because at this point in time, you go to another city, you're going to be in the same place as you will be with us tonight if we don't approve it. You can't turn the clock back and go apply in Albany and get this put through by the 20th. So I would hope you would work with us, but my recommendation is going to be that we continue this item and bring it back. We can tell staff specifically what it is we'd like to learn, but because this whole thing of cannabis is so unknown, and then that we're doing a concept that really is kind of groundbreaking, which is what Emeryville is all about. Totally in support of it. But we do have a lot of other considerations to make to just push something through and say, yeah, let's go ahead and do this because we have a deadline tonight. And that to me is just a really poor reason to answer something. And I would hope you'd think that, by us approving the first one, we are in support of this. And we're going to definitely hear about the third one. But as I said, this thing to me looks like Swiss cheese. There's all kinds of holes, all kinds of empty parts in here that I can't fill in, and I can't support it at tonight's meeting.
So I look forward to voting in favor of this project once it has delivered all the answers to the variety of questions that have been posed to it. I think that the concept is great, and we've already approved one. This will eventually be approved, but really, there's so many questions. I mean, we deal in land use, but we also deal in 3 dimensions. So it would be nice to see an application that answers some of these dimensional questions of how vehicles get in and out of the building, and how the fire exiting issue might be addressed, how the potential conflict between the restaurant and the facility, we're looking at how that would be addressed. I think the idea that of limiting the access from Hollis to the storage court during hours of operation by the restaurant would be certainly worthy of consideration. So I echo Commissioner Keller's suggestion that we give the applicant a chance to answer some of these questions more specifically and come back again.
I have the same type of reservations about how the space is actually going to function and what's the relationship between how many future tenants will there be, and how it's all going to be integrated. And if someone would like to make a motion on continuing the matter, or...
Now, seeing that, I can make a motion that we continue this item.
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
Okay, that was moved by Commissioner Keller and seconded by Vice Chair Barrera. On the motion to continue the item, Commissioner Banta?
Aye.
Commissioner Keller?
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson?
Aye.
Vice Chair Barrera?
Aye.
And Chair Donaldson?
Aye.
5 ayes. The application will be continued to a future meeting.
Chair Donaldson, if I may ask for a clarification regarding this project. Is the Commission not comfortable with the idea of having an incubator space, meaning where the tenants have not yet been identified?
I think for me that there are more questions about interior circulation, about whether that's workable, about how the trash gets treated and moved around, what the relationship with the open storage court and how that space is secured and protected, and just it's a more of a spatial set of spatial issues, and also the traffic concern with the lack of clarity about how the TDM would actually work.
Yeah, I think we support the idea of incubator space, actually, and the fact that it gives an opportunity for very small businesses to come in and set up shop without having to go through this process that the owner's going through now. We just need to see that it's the specifics and see that it does work.
Without the tenants, it's not possible to know how many deliveries, for example, will occur.
Right, but
it's not possible to know how many employees. We can put a restriction.
Right.
So that's one way we could go.
So let me tell you from my point of view, what I'd like is I'd like to have set delivery hours for regardless to what they're doing. And first, I'd like to say I totally support incubator space. And the fear of the whole cannabis industry is that it's going to be taken over with large corporate conglomerations. And I like the idea of small companies, small ingenious people coming up with different ideas. This is totally in support. It's just a lot of confusion here and a lot of mis. So I think what we need to do is there are capacity levels that the fire marshal and the fire department could set for a building of this size with its exit. So let's set that. They can have no more than this many employees. We just need to get rid of the variables. I need a real clear indication on what this outdoor space is, because to me that's a security risk. There are cameras there, but there's time that people can get into this space, work on the entrance doors to break into this place before someone sees the video cameras and calls the police. So I needed, this is a cross-section of a public space of a restaurant and their dining area on the outside. So we need really clear direction. What the space is going to be used for, what's the interface between this gate and the gate to the street. I definitely need to know, the parking issue is a big deal. We can't provide parking, but we need to know that the TDMs that they're providing for the amount of people that are going to be. Now, granted, it might run 24 hours a day, and that would spread out the people, but they talked about a project template. Let's see that template. If they don't have it, let's create it. Let's get their whole overall concept. We understand they can't tell us what each person's going to do, but let's get an idea of what they're planning for them to do. Let's just get some solid answers and a proposal that we can actually make sense in a land use kind of way.
Maru, and I understand where you're coming from, that some of these questions might be a little difficult to answer without the tenants, but I would like to get as close to answering those questions as possible. And I just do want to put it on the record that I also agree, I also support the incubator model and having this space be entitled on a kind of broader level like this, so that it does give flexibility to some of these businesses that might have difficulty coming through these processes. So I guess it's going to be a challenge for you folks, but I think you can do it.
I think it's doable. With this direction, it's very doable. I understand the concerns, and we'll come back with those concerns addressed. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you can't bring your business, it's unfortunate, but I'm sure hopefully someone can bring a similar business to us, and we're definitely all in support of it.
Okay. Last public hearing is on Wall Road Collective applicant, which is 1265 67th Street.
Meru, when you get to the map, the overall map of allowable areas and so forth, could you just point out where each one of these is located on that map?
Okay. So, well, first of all, I would just like to update the commission that the name of the applicant has changed since the writing of the staff report. So the applicant now is Avis 11, and they have filled in the paperwork in order to do that. So what I'll do first is I'll show the map so that you have an idea of where all the various applications that you're hearing today are located. So this is 67th Street. The one that we just heard, 6613 Hollis, is at this corner. The one that you approved is across the street at this corner. And then the one that you're about to hear is right here. And, okay. Sorry. All right, so this is a slightly larger facility, a little under 8,000 square foot building. Again, it's a lot line to lot line building, and hence no parking here. And this facility will also is looking for entitlements to cover different broad range of manufacturing activities as the earlier one, except that the applicant themselves are going to be one of the tenants. And that tenant goes by the brand name of Kikoko, and they make products like teas and chocolates and other edibles. At this point, I've been informed after the writing of the staff report that they do, in addition, they do have a specific tenant lined up as well. So at the time of the writing, they were going to lease the building and then have the allowance to have another subtenant. But at this time, and they can speak to the tenant that they have acquired. These are the hours of operation. Again, 8 to 8, Monday through Sunday, except for deliveries, which will occur from 8 a.m., which will not occur from 8, which will occur from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. No changes to the building. Exterior changes are proposed at this time. And so this is 67th Street, and this is the building, and this is the front of the building. And this is sort of not very clear, but this is the floor plan. There's a small mezzanine area at the building. And if you look at your staff report, there are some additional pictures of the interior of the building. Again, it's in the same area, so a lot of the conformity regarding the planning regulations are same as before. It's in the light industrial zone where the use is permitted. No change in FAR or the height. And in terms of parking, like I mentioned, there is no parking, and the requirement here is also 4 to 7 spaces. And they have outlined a TDM plan. So these are the findings that you need to make, and these TDM plan includes free AC transit passes as well as BART, and other things are common to the previous application. Again, there are conditions of approval ensuring that subtenants are required to follow the same TDM plan, and that there is monitoring process protocol in there after they start operation 6 months and after 1 year of the start of operation. Again, the use permit findings that you need to make are the similar, and they're pretty much outlined in your staff report. So that concludes my presentation. The applicant is here, and both of us are available to answer the questions.
Questions?
Just one quick one. Maru, I didn't notice anything in the packet showing a floor plan or anything about tenant improvements. Has that not been discussed or decided yet on how the space would be divided for this tenant and the subtenant?
Correct. At the time of writing and of this package, they did not have a tenant lined up, but they were expecting to have a tenant, so they asked for that, asked that they be allowed to do so.
Okay, thank you.
Maru, I'll just ask, I think, a self-evident question, but this project does not involve any sales of product to the public, is that correct?
There are no on-site sales of any kind.
And so on one of the exhibits that you have, it says tenant improvements, Kohana Coffee. Is that like what the existing space is, or what am I looking at?
Yeah, so that's Kohana Coffee are the prior users of the building, and the plans probably were taken from them when they were when they had applied for their permit to the building department. So Kohana Coffee is not involved in any way.
So is this application similar in the sense that you say a tenant apparently has been identified, is that correct?
Correct. So Kikoko is the applicant. I mean, the name they've changed through the process, but the product that they make goes by the name of Kikoko. So let's call them Kikoko at this point. So they are a tenant. They will be using the space to produce their products, and in addition to that, they will also share part of the space with another tenant, which at this time they have identified as the Kiva products. Kiva, I believe they make chocolates.
Okay.
But that was not included in the packet because the Kiva was not identified at the time of writing of the staff report. But Kikoko is the manufacturer of products, and they are the same people. It's just the names of the applicant.
Okay, so if I look at the photograph you show of the site, that's 1265. So the photograph shows a man door and then a roll-up door with loading dock height to the left, and then to the right is another roll-up door. Is that a different building? Is that a different structure?
I believe it is. No, it's the same.
So I'm confused then by the plan that I'm looking at that shows the tenant improvements and the image of the photograph from the front that shows the two roll-up doors and the man door in the center, whereas in the plan, it's hard to see, of course, because it's so small. The plan shows the man door all the way to the right, and I don't even see where the roll-up door is exactly.
Perhaps the applicant can come and explain what's going on.
Yeah, but I mean, look at this plan. I mean, is this plan unrelated to it?
Yeah.
The photos I see and I can appreciate, but I'm just curious, is the plan that I'm looking at related to those photographs in some way that I don't understand how it is related?
Yeah.
What you're talking about.
This is the plan.
Right. Hi, my name is Jennifer Chapin, and I'm one of the co-founders of Kikoko. Thank you very much, first and foremost, for the meeting tonight. Really appreciate your help. And just want to thank the staff We've been working with the staff now for about over a year. So this is a really gratifying moment and important evening for us. So there are 2 roll-up doors and then 2 entrance doors. One's dedicated for a fire, well, it's an entrance, but it's also a fire entrance and exit if that were to occur. And then I'm not sure the term a man door. Can you explain that to me?
It just means a door that a man goes through as opposed to a car.
Okay.
A person
Or a woman.
door.
A human door.
Person door.
Person
Or
door.
man. Works for both.
Okay. So there's that's why I was looking at it's hard for me to see this plan up here, but yeah, there's just a regular door. There's 2 doors to get in and out of the building, and then there's 2 roll-up doors.
Okay, so maybe you can appreciate my confusion. If you can, I don't know if you can manipulate the slides, but if you go a couple of slides down to the photograph of the front of the building.
Good question.
So are all the facades, are both those roll-up doors part of your
Correct.
facility?
Yes.
Okay, so it doesn't correspond to the plan that I'm looking at. So I don't know.
Okay.
So what he's seeing
Sorry
is,
about that.
if you look at the plan, the human doors or the man doors, they're both at the far extremes of the buildings. They're one at the far left of the building and one at the far right of the building. This is showing us a roll-up door beyond the person door. That's not reflective in the plan. The plan ends at the door that has address 1255.
It's sort of to reflect the fact that that leftmost door no longer rolls up, but that man door was sort of cut out of it, and that door no longer rolls up. It was something to do with the last tenant's modifications.
So this is an old photograph.
It is. Well, it's an old floor plan. The photograph is current, but there was some that change on that door was marked. It's just we literally got the floor plan right before we submitted it, so there was no. We didn't update the floor plan to show that that door is no longer, I suppose, a large usable entrance door and is a man door, I suppose, now.
Okay, well, so the floor plan shows a man door all the way over to the right.
That is now just that man door and that roll-up door you see in the picture.
Can you scroll back one to the floor plan?
One more.
Yeah, one more. Oh.
The other way.
Whoops.
Oh, is that too far?
I don't know.
Click next.
Forward.
Now we're really confused.
Sorry about that.
There you go. There you go.
Thank you. So back here.
So if you look at the bottom of the picture on the facade, you see a door on the bottom there, the man door. According to this picture, even if the door is not in use, there should be a roll-up door or space for that beyond that door. It looks like the doors are all in the very end of each of these buildings.
Yeah, it's just that on the right door it is just that roll-up door, and the man door is slightly.
Right. So it should show on the plan to the bottom of that man door.
Here's another way of asking the question. Yeah. Which is true? The plan that we're looking at here, does that reflect the reality of the building that is existing there, or the photograph?
The photograph is correct. A second plan was submitted. I think it wasn't necessarily clear or fast enough to have made it into the presentation.
All right.
Tonight.
Well, that explains it. I'm sorry to have wasted so much time.
Oh no.
That's sort of just sticklers for believing what we look at.
And I think that's a 100% thing, a great thing to do. It's just with our sort of a rapid response to the way things are unfolding with state regulations and what we've had to sort of just catch up with it. I apologize for the late submission there. Okay. Absolutely.
Sure. Thank you.
Other questions for the applicant or for staff?
I had one for the applicant about the delivery hours. Is there a reason they have to accept deliveries till 7 p.m.? Beyond normal business hours?
There was. I don't believe that there was a particular reason we needed to extend those hours. It was, I think it was just we were intending to do within that 8 to 8 frame. We knew that that was going to be the general time frame the city was setting for other deliveries, and we just wanted to stay within that. I don't think it was an intentional.
Okay.
Don't leave. Other questions, commissioners?
I think I have the same questions as I had before about the distribution component, the question of deliveries, and the first thing is just sort of impact. You know, like in a typical, given the tenant scenario, you know, how many deliveries do you anticipate?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we are generally, because now the co-tenant who we're going to be subleasing the other side of the building to is going to be our distributor. It was going to be Kiva Sales and Service. So most of the shipments that we're going to be going out now, we can hopefully just literally carry across the building. And so their distributing would be basically their 4 secure vans would come and pick up product in the beginning of the day. And go out on their delivery routes, and then maybe if there is any returns or anything they need to bring back, come back at the end of the day, but ideally potentially just go back to their off-site stored parking or secured parking.
And that's a daily occurrence? Is that also on weekends or not?
It would be Monday to Friday, and
Monday to
just
Friday.
those business, or the 5 business days, and would be those 4 delivery vans in the morning, yeah.
Okay.
Are those deliveries occurring at the front of the building where those roll-up doors are? Is that where the deliveries are going to be going out through?
Yes, that is the idea.
So that delivery point will not allow a truck to go into the building itself?
Correct.
If it's a van, it could back up to it and the doors would open and you could unload from there.
But there would be a person who would have to do, so it would potentially still be visible from the sidewalk.
Okay, so maybe I missed it. Did you tell us what your security protocol would be for deliveries? Or do you have one in place?
We do have a security protocol in place. It is something that has been a requirement for us to get ready for state production and for all our normal manufacturing standard operating procedures. There will be cameras on the front of the facilities 24/7. And while Kiva will be providing their own security for their drivers and for their loading and unloading, it won't necessarily be something that we would need to supervise or provide additional security for.
Okay, I'm confused by that response. Does that mean that there is going to be somebody from within the building who comes out of the building to?
Oh yes. Again, all deliveries and all receipts would need to be acknowledged or known of ahead of time, so that they can be there will be a manifesting and receiving process. Absolutely, so that they will be actively received anytime. Certainly, to the individual security for basically the tenants on each side. While we will be sharing a security system for the building, those individual transactions will be monitored by our side will be monitored by us, and Kiva's side will be monitored by Kiva.
So the main point of entrance for the occupants of the building will be in the center person door that we've looked at on the front of your elevation?
Okay, and that'll be secured with key cards and ID-related swiping security.
And will you also have a camera there?
Sorry?
Will you also have a camera there with a monitor inside that someone could see who might be knocking on the door who doesn't have a key card?
Absolutely, yeah. There'll be, in accordance with the state required security protocols, there will be not only just internally 24-hour video surveillance, there will be on the exterior and those doors.
And are you proposing to add security lighting over these various openings that you have that open up to the street?
Security lighting in terms of...
something that allows you to see who's out there when it gets dark.
Yes, I'm not 100% sure if it's motion activated yet or if there was a 24...
I just had a meeting with them yesterday. So
You could come up to the microphone as well. You can both come up.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, you just need to speak into the microphone.
I just had another security meeting with our security company, Barry Alarm, and I've had 3 meetings with them now. So we walked the premises actually yesterday, setting up all of our camera locations and where they would be in the building and on the exterior. So yes, there will be motion sensors inside, outside, very extensive along the lines of what the first gentleman described.
And is that a plan that's part of your application, or is that supposedly taken up by the operating?
That would be part of the operator's permit.
Okay. So my next question is, we've heard testimony in previous applications about efforts that will be made to control the scent or the fragrance or whatever that comes out of the building. Do you have similar plans?
Yeah, and maybe if I could, maybe I could just step back for a minute and tell you a little bit about our company, Kikoko. I don't know if you've heard of us, but we make low-dose teas, primarily for the female market, for sleep, pain, anxiety, and mood and libido. And all of our products are very low dose. They've been very well received so far in the marketplace. And as a consequence of being an herbal tea, an herbal infused tea, actually our facility smells quite nice. It's very herbal and flowery, and we've managed to mask the scent and the taste of cannabis. So if you were to come to our facility, you would actually smell, it'd be very floral smelling. I don't know, do you want to add to that at all?
Also, because our manufacturing process does not actually involve raw cannabis in any way, shape, or form, we purchase already pre-refined oil. So the cannabis that we are actually intaking is in a very small form factor that has already minimal scent, and the processing we do to it is already, in a smaller and very encapsulated way, and is not a large scent-producing issue that we encounter even in smaller spaces. So we do not anticipate it being a problem for us, and we are absolutely ready to remedy any detectable scent we can have.
Please.
Is that the case for the Kiva as well?
Oh, pardon me?
Is that the case for the Kiva as well?
Kiva will not actually be doing, although Kiva is known as a chocolate company, they will not be doing any manufacturing on site either. They will just be doing their Kiva distribution, sales and service as their distribution arm, and so they will only have closed boxes of product moving through the facility. There will be no manufacturing on site, and they will also have no exposed raw product.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Are they going to make a separate application?
They will be doing an operator's permit literally tomorrow as well. But since they
get entitled
permit for the building, all their security plan and all that gets submitted for their operator's permit to the police department.
Okay, but they would get entitled under this.
Correct.
Correct. The conditions of approval
Okay.
anticipate a subtenant relationship.
Okay.
And if I may, actually, they were supposed to be here tonight, and the co-founder's mother got sick, so unfortunately they couldn't be here. But just to speak on behalf of Kiva, they actually are probably the leading cannabis company in the state of California. They've been around for almost 9 years, and they've actually paved the way for folks like us in the cannabis industry. We've been in the industry about 3.5 years, and we take our hat off and we applaud the folks at Kiva, because these are the folks that have paved the way for us. And they were looking for a home, and because of our relationship with them, they're doing our distribution for us, and it just made sense for us to house this together. And eventually our goal is to actually be so large, and our teas are so loved, that we actually take over the entire building. But in the short term, we can't take on the rent of an 8,000 square foot building. So that's why we wanted to find a tenant that was compatible with us, that we could sublet a portion of our space, and they're the perfect partner for us.
I have a question. Visibility, will you ever roll up the doors?
Actually, the doors do work. I'm sorry, James.
Yeah, that one on the right.
Yeah, so the door does work on the right that we can roll up.
Okay,
So, yes.
and do you have the same concerns or needs to keep things invisible? I mean, do you have to keep, are there different security concerns, or the ability to not show people things? I mean, I don't know if that door is different than...
It does actually, helpfully right now, or the last tenant used it basically as their trash space, so there is kind of an already enclosed space right behind that door.
Okay,
where
there
there's
is.
an interior building like about 10 feet in, where you can basically, where the edge of that, where it shows the walkway or ramp right now. And so it is very easy to just drop in like a screen or one of those walkways on the side where it'd be entirely screen offable.
Great.
So that brings us to our next favorite subject, trash disposal. So how do you plan to manage that in this space?
Absolutely. Well, I was about to say, in terms of our quarantining and size requirements, because we are working with cannabis refined oil already, our waste fits into a mason jar, over the course of an extended period of time. So it is a very small amount of waste. It is going to be thoroughly mixed and disposed of, and we are looking for, if not, basically in so many municipalities, there are places in which the local municipality is incorporating some sensitivity to handle the cannabis, but in many ways we were ready to basically mix it and take it to a dump, or have one of our employees directly take it to a authorized waste facility. But we were basically hoping that, it is something we have to do so infrequently that there would be a licensed service up and running to do that for us in those first coming months. And it does sound like Versagenics has found that, somebody who's operating in Emeryville. So that was actually a note we had to follow up with them after this. It sounds like they've already found that licensed disposer.
Yeah, and one of the advantages for us with teaming up with Kiva is that they've done a lot of this stuff. I mean, they've been at this a long time. So whenever we have questions about things, we have just a bevy of people that we can ask.
So can I ask a couple of questions about this plan that does not reflect what you're applying for? It's right up in front of us.
Yes.
It shows a ramp inside that allows ADA accessibility, I'm assuming, to the shop floor or to the floor of your facility. That door that apparently is not in the correct location. The door is more in the center of your facade. So do you still have a ramp?
The ramp has actually been replaced by a small elevator, just one of those small lifts.
Okay,
a floor lift.
great.
So that space is now opened up.
And then you have a hallway on the upper side of the thing there, of the space, which is for fire exiting purposes. Does that still exist?
That does.
Yeah, prior to our understanding, talking to the prior tenant, is that there was about $500,000 in improvements that were made to this building that we get to take advantage of to turn it into a food grade facility. That was one of the requirements, was to create this fire entrance and exit.
Thank you very much.
So I have just a question. So the plan we're looking at is not actually what you have currently that you're living with. It's different. This is a previous plan?
Right, that was the previous tenants.
Okay. And so your plan is similar to this? There's no added walls that we're not seeing in this plan? And so you and the Kiva are going to kind of share space? It's not going to be divided Kiva space in your space?
Well, what we'll do is, if you're, they'll be on the upper half of the plan, if you will. We're basically demising it in the center. And then they'll have the other half for the most part, and then we'll have this half.
So you're going to demise it lengthwise or widthwise?
Correct, lengthwise.
Lengthwise. So how does the space, let's say that would be on the west side, that's the lower side, how does that access the fire exit on the east side?
And how do they share the ADA ramp or elevator?
And so what we've created is we've agreed on shared space and access to those types of areas.
That's a pretty good answer.
Coming from the architect.
Can you talk a little bit about the TDM plan? Again, this is an application that is larger than the first one we saw. You do have that, you have detailed a TDM plan, anticipating conflicts, if there end up more cars in the neighborhood, do you have a sense of any issues or any things that you have thought about in terms of dealing with that?
We have gone.
You need to get closer to the microphone.
Because we are, thankfully, our staff is a fairly low requirement, and thankfully, Kiva does have other facilities in the East Bay, and they have their vans, parked off-site. So we are hoping to stay as minimal impact and lightly flexible as possible. There is a more or less open parking lot across the street, but we try not, there's no, it's owned by the UC Berkeley system, and it's been tough to find someone basically in charge of that parking lot who can also say, we could lease you these spaces or that, or, we have looked at the different parking lots in the area, but it does look like our best option for anything directly around there is just to strictly minimize and provide as much flexibility for our employees as possible. We do regularly anticipate just a handful of employees needing to be there every day. So things like our bike parking, I know that I personally will be there every day, and I live so close. I bike to everything we've had here so far at Emeryville. And it is the majority of us will be there on our BART passes and or biking. But we do also think that our strong telecommute work policy and our guaranteed ride home policy, which we have in place and strongly communicate to everybody, in any case you have to stay late, in any case anybody is working longer than expected, we are guaranteeing everybody who does do non-traditional commuting or transit their ride home every day.
We actually even have I don't know if you're familiar with Slack, which is a communication platform that we use. We actually have a carpool channel in our Slack communication for coordinating carpools currently with everybody.
So you mentioned that there is a correct plan somewhere, correct?
Yes.
And has it been submitted to the staff?
Yes, I can absolutely resubmit that right now. Or
Well, actually, do you have a copy of it around? It would be fun to see it.
It's in my personal email, which I cannot access sitting here.
Oh, so it's a digital version. You don't have you didn't bring a hard copy with you?
I'll bring an additional paper copy.
Okay.
I could directly email. I could literally grab my phone right now and directly email it to everybody here if that would be helpful.
You could email it to me, and I can print it downstairs and go grab it. Put it on the overhead.
That would be, I think that would be worthwhile, if that's not too much trouble.
I can.
I agree. I think it would be really important because we were asking the other tenant for a lot of details, and I'm just not seeing what we're approving in this plan here. So I think if we have any way to look at it, I think it's important and kind of fair to everyone else that we actually look at an actual floor plan of what we're approving.
It's always nice to see
I'd support that and maybe ask for a bathroom break while she does that.
Take a 5-minute break. Come back to order. We're going to resume the hearing, the public hearing. So we have an updated drawing here. You have some questions?
Do we get to see the whole plan or just this 3/4?
And we
James, do you
apologize.
need
Sorry
help
about
in
this.
manipulating the image?
I can drag that there. I think we can.
Yeah, you can change the percentage, that 50, yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, let me
Make
know
it
if you-
smaller to get the whole thing and then zoom in.
And that red line will be the division basically between the Kikoko side on the west side there on the south, or the lower side of the drawing, and the Kiva Sales and Service on the upper side there.
Okay, so that I don't waste everybody's time with a bunch of technical questions, we're being asked to approve a land use, correct? Not a specific architectural solution to.
That is correct.
Correct.
All right, so that's enough for me.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant or for staff? Do we know how many employees were working in there at the coffee business?
I believe it was 12 to 15 at their full employment.
Okay.
And yours thing says there's 8 to 15 employees. Does that include Kiva's employees or is that just your employees?
Yes, it includes both.
That's Kiva and you, okay.
Yes.
So we're impact about the same number of people working from the
Correct.
coffee place to this use, okay?
Yes.
Okay. Are there other questions? Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to open the public hearing because there's still members of the public wishing to speak.
Thank you, Council Chairperson.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to clarify.
Good evening yet again. Veronica Whitfield, 20-year resident of Emeryville. I just have a few brief questions as you all are vetting out the same questions. I'm just really unclear as to the need of having operations Monday through Sunday from 7 to 7. And I understand that that is a wide parameter that may be given to all businesses in the manufacturing or in the industrial zoning. But be reminded that there is also a residential component to this neighborhood as well. This particular business is really within earshot of my home. Very much adjacent to the green belt to the west of it. It's a 92-unit development that is there. We are already greatly impacted by parking issues as it is. So if we're having extended hours beyond or up till 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening, residents are already having a hard enough time trying to find parking on the street, and we actually overflow into that area as well as on the backside. So it does present a safety hazard or issue for residents. And I do understand that the existing or the proposed occupant mirrors maybe the same staff as the exiting tenant, but I just would like that to be made mindful. And then the other thing is a question posed to the commission, to the council or board, is it really necessary to have 3 dispensaries within a half a block of each other? I just think it's kind of overkill. I understand that you're trying to accommodate a burgeoning need or industry demand, but again, the question is, do we really need to have that many on one block? And it's not even a full block. It's in half a block or a portion thereof. So, final comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello again. I don't know if I need to make another introduction, if that's required for the record, but I think a lot of the questions again were answered. With regard to odor and such, it's a different, it's interesting, 3 different companies or 3 different land uses and 3 different ways of producing this product. I'm just getting a real great education on cannabis today. I will have to say this is again a different situation as far as land use because there is substantially more traffic, foot traffic in front of this particular building. our building is attached or butts up against it. We're at 1255 67th, and this is 1250. This is 1265. I'm very familiar with the traffic in this area, and there is a substantial amount of traffic going up and down that south side of the sidewalk, much more so than the other users. And I just point that out with regard to security, because I don't know how this works with security, and I will be talking to the upcoming tenant about that a little bit. But if they're not familiar with it, there is a lot of traffic, and we have to deal with it as a manufacturer so that we're safe with the public in the area. So those are just my comments, and thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Keith Mill, and I'm here hoping to bring cannabis businesses to Emeryville. So I will just say that I've started my business first in Emeryville 25 years ago as CFO of Nanotex, a nanotechnology company. We grew from 8 people to 90. Then I went to For Real Foods when after incubating that in Orinda, we moved here to 6121 Hollis, and we had about 30 people when we started and 60 people when I retired in 2015. Since that time, I've studied and then began investing with my partner Allison over here in cannabis businesses, from established to startups to property development. And just in listening to things tonight, I really appreciate your orientation to developing, to supporting small businesses. We're investors in a business that is hoping to perpetuate the small farmer up in Mendocino County. We're investors in the property known as the Flow Cannabis Institute, an 80-acre, 800,000 square foot facility that is going to process for small sun-grown farmers up there. But what I wanted to use that example for is these multi-tenant properties can work. We up there are making that work with an anchor tenant and then supporting tenants around it. So a lot of concern over the incubator project. I think that you'll find a way to make that work. And certainly with the Coco Kiva property, that's a little bit simpler. And I would just speak in support of you doing everything you can to use existing facilities such as we're using up there to allow these businesses to find a home to create employment, such as I've done here in Emeryville, and all the tax revenue that comes with it. All right, thanks very much.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this? Okay. Close the public hearing.
I actually had one additional question for the applicant. That's okay. I think if you can come up just so we can get it on the record. The community member brought up the noise and the weekend. We didn't really talk about the weekend operations. I know it would be entitled here, but is that how your business operates or not?
No, I mean, we typically operate 9 to 5, 9 to 6. So it's, it would be not as common to work on a weekend. I think we put that in there on the occasional weekend when we're, busy and trying to fill orders or something like that, on the occasional time that we need to have a weekend. But I mean, I typically work from home on the weekends because I, want to stay in my PJs. But yeah, so we encourage remote, working and support that. So.
Okay, and then overall noise levels for your operations?
Very, very minimal. None, really. I mean, we have a very quiet tea machine.
Okay, I just wanted to just
yeah, no, fair enough.
Yeah, okay.
So I totally appreciate the woman's comments, though, and we're definitely sensitive to that.
Yeah, and it definitely, you are closer to residences than some of the other applicants, so I think, it's just a consideration.
Okay.
So does your proposed tenants, do they have much interaction with the public?
None.
None, okay.
And in terms of the Kiva deliveries, it was mentioned that there were probably as many as 4 vans that would come up to pick up their deliveries and then take off and probably not come back for the rest of the day. Is that with those delivery loading and unloading, loading up occur through the roll-up doors, or is it something that someone would be just coming in and out of the doors?
Ideally, the roll-up.
It would be with the roll-up?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it probably could be either. I mean, if you guys want to stipulate on what you feel like would be lower impact, then we would take that into consideration, obviously.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of Mr. Martin's concerns about the level of foot traffic and it being right next to the greenway and having how much time the business would be open and exposed.
Yeah, and I think that would be something that would be, and I would just met him tonight for the first time. I've been looking for him when I go over there. Hadn't met him yet, but I think given his longevity in the neighborhood and experience, we could probably learn from that, and I would welcome an opportunity to meet with him.
Does the state not have the same type of screening requirements for your business as it did for some of the other applicants that we heard tonight? Because I thought that there was some screening requirement so that there was an interface between the public and, you know, how you're handling or storing the cannabis.
We're all under the same scrutiny.
All right, but that wasn't exactly what your question was.
Did I answer your question? I'm sorry.
Well,
some of the previous discussion has been about the operations being visible to the public or being screened from the public, and that was partly what my question was getting at. How long would roll-up doors be open if there's a delivery thing going on, and what would people walking by be able to be seeing inside? And is there a requirement that your operations be screened? Pardon me?
Is there a double door, or is it a single roll-up and then you can see into the space?
It's a roll-up. Do you want to help me out with this, or? James was planning it.
No, absolutely. Yeah, the public-facing rules for what's visible from the public are generally written into the regulations for dispensaries, and it is anticipated for the manufacturers that none of our manufacturing operations or anything will at any point be visible to the public. So if there is a point at which the doors are open. At any point, there will be we will ensure that there's no way to see any way inside the facility. There will be absolutely there's no real wiggle room in the state regulations on that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If we may, Chair, condition number 8 is a standard condition, and it provides that all commercial cannabis activity shall be conducted inside the building and not be visible from the exterior of the building or from the public right-of-way.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Who wants to start?
You can start us. I have very few comments. This seems like a very low-intensity use, and and it also seems like it's not going to be much more impactful than the use that's going on there. And I appreciate that the TDM is monitored by the Community Development Director within 6 months and a year after starting the operation. I think this kind of gives us a little bit of flexibility to see how things go once you get your tenants established and the business going a little bit more. So, you know, I would appreciate something like that going forward, and just to give everybody peace of mind that these TDM plans do work once we know how many employees are actually going to be occupying the space. So with that said, you know, I appreciate this business coming into Emeryville, and it does seem like it would be a low intensity use, because to me this seems like a tea manufacturing business that just has cannabis as an ingredient rather than a full-blown cannabis manufacturing type of business. So.
Sure. Yeah. No. I in general, you know, thank you for the applicant, the level of detail that you've provided. That was very helpful. Thank you for the staff for giving us the detail as well. Yeah, I do feel like many more questions were answered here. We do have a known tenant. We recognize that you're in process and you don't have everything worked out, and you have many other regulatory bodies that you have to interface with. So I think you will, you know, that ability to continue the process is good. The idea that you still have the annual review, as all of these applications do, I think that's important. I think it's just important to say that this is an important element that you will comply with, so that is good in terms of understanding if the TDM is working, understanding if the operation's working with the neighborhood. But I do feel like it's pretty well thought out and understandable, and thank you for providing the additional plan. The only thing I would say is, although the scent is quite lovely, it may be too intense eventually, depending on what scale your operations get to. So I just wanted to note that you may have to take action, but it seemed like you were prepared to do that. So and that was helpful for your response there. Those are my thoughts and comments.
So I'm looking at this plan, and I want to ask staff the question here. I should not concern myself with how both tenants are going to be able to use the second exit passageway, or how both tenants are going to be using the same entrance door. That's for others to be concerned with. Is that correct?
As part of this plan, they have to get a building permit.
Okay, sounds good. I want to just commend Veronica for her very cogent and articulate testimony on all three of these projects. And I think it is an interesting question why should we be approving three cannabis-related operations in the city of Emeryville all at once? I think that each one, we've listened to each application, on its own merits, and we have to ask ourselves the converse question, which is, why should we not approve these three? And I think that the issues of security and odor and sound, to me, seem to have been addressed by the first and this last one adequately to make me believe that they would not present a net deficit to the city, but instead would be a contribution to it. So those are my comments.
Okay, thanks again to everyone for their comments, the community, staff, and the applicant. Everything was pretty thorough. I do just want to clear up, particularly for the residents, that looking at the project description, the hours of operation is basically set at 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. So I'm thinking any weekend work that would happen would be rather incidental, would be on occasion. It wouldn't be something that I think would be a constant disruption for the neighborhood. I also see this particular business as being no different than what's there now. So I don't think that you're going to have any more disruption or anything that you're not used to already. Again, I think coffee companies have far more deliveries, larger deliveries than a company like this would have. So if anything, I would expect a drop in the impact. And about the approvals in the three dispensaries or the manufacturer that we're looking at, actually, if this goes forward tonight, we will have only approved 2, so we haven't approved 3. But I see these as 3 distinct and different businesses. I think what Kyoko is doing here is very different than what the first applicant is doing, and I think the incubator thing is yet something different again. Yeah, they're all working with cannabis, but I think they're very distinct differences. So it's like saying that you don't want to bring in McDonald's because we have Townhouse Grill here. So I think that this is appropriate. I think this is the part of town that they belong in, and I think that they could be very good community members, and I thank everyone for what they've done.
I don't really have any additional comments. I don't think that the use is going to be more intense than the previous uses. I think that the operating permit will ensure that there aren't any ill effects from odor from the actual processes that are going on there in terms of noise, in terms of disruption to the neighborhood. So I'm okay with this one because I feel that it's been well thought out and well presented.
So with that said, I would like to make a motion to approve the conditional use permit.
I'll second it.
All right. That was moved by Vice Chair Barrera and seconded by Commissioner Thompson. And I assume this would be with the same minor corrections as with the previous application to condition number 10 about the operator's permit. If you recall, we
Yes.
made a clarification on that. Conditions are all the same, so.
Yes.
All right. Commissioner Banta?
Aye.
Commissioner Keller?
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson?
Aye.
Vice Chair Barrera?
Aye.
Chair Donaldson?
Aye.
5 ayes, the application is approved. This decision may be appealed to the City Council within 15 days.
Thank you. Okay, any commissioner comments? I would just like to say that it seems that the applicants are willing to talk with community members, and we're in fact looking to speak with Mr. Martin, and I would encourage interaction so that you can feel like there's open lines of communication in case there's anything that's concerning to anyone. And with that, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you.